The story kicks off under a quiet moonlit sky, setting the stage for a tragic beginning. A mysterious hooded figure approaches a rustic cabin, cradling a newborn baby carefully in his arms. He gently hands the child over, promising to return for her soon despite the baby's desperate, thrashing protests. The commoner couple taking her in seems super hesitant, complaining about their own financial struggles. But the mysterious man easily sweetens the deal, popping open a chest packed to the brim with dazzling jewels and gold. The woman's eyes instantly light up at the treasure, while the baby wiggles around like a trapped little bean, knowing exactly what's about to happen. The hooded man shoots one last, sorrowful look at the child. He completely ignores her energetic wailing and sets her down gently on the wooden floor. Leaving behind a letter with specific instructions, he turns his back on the crying infant. He vanishes into the dark forest, while the baby silently begs him not to leave her in this living hell again. The couple celebrates their massive jackpot, carrying the baby inside like she's just a bonus prize. Wrapped up in her blanket, the little girl realizes she is absolutely doomed. Fast forward a few years, and a loud voice aggressively shatters the peace, rudely calling out to a grannyhead. The child is now 4 years old, kneeling on the floor while a teenage boy aggressively scolds her. Her real name is Anastasia, and even though she looks like a toddler, her mind is way beyond her physical years. Turns out she is actually grinding through her 10th tragic life. The annoying guy yelling at her is Andy, the family's pathetic son who accuses her of being a useless glutton. Anastasia just straight up ignores his tantrum, quietly going back to scrubbing the floor. Outraged by the disrespect, Andy violently kicks a heavy wooden bucket right at her head. But she dodges the flying water with the smooth reflexes of a seasoned ninja. Andy stands there looking incredibly dumb, realizing this is already the 6th time she's perfectly evaded his attacks. He grits his teeth, totally baffled by how a tiny toddler keeps outplaying him. He points a shaky finger at her, loudly declaring that she must be a wicked witch. Andy takes it a step further, maliciously taunting her that her witch of a mother abandoned her and will never return. He smirks like an absolute villain, loving every second of rubbing salt in her wounds. Meanwhile, the parents casually lounge around, letting this intense daily abuse happen without lifting a finger. Anastasia just stares back, coldly noting that Andy's clumsy body will never let him become a real knight anyway. She mentally roasts him, calling out his short, muscle-less frame and massively oversized head. Suddenly, Andy's mom interrupts the chaos, telling him to pay attention to the noise outside. The heavy clop of horse hooves echoes through the window, catching everyone's attention. Andy eagerly yanks the front door open to see who would travel all the way to their rundown home. Outside sits an incredibly lavish carriage, looking like it rolled straight out of a royal fairy tale. Spotting the official knightage flag, Andy completely loses his mind. He and his mom start dancing around like absolute goofballs, convinced the knights are here to finally accept Andy into their ranks. The majestic carriage slowly rolls to a halt right in front of their humble cabin. A loud, authoritative knock booms against the wooden door. Andy swings it open with a massive grin, ready to welcome his shiny new future. But instead of a friendly recruiter, a towering, fiercely intimidating knight with glowing red eyes stares him down. The blonde knight coldly asks if this is the windmilled residence. Andy stammers out a yes, only for the imposing man to completely ignore him and demand to see the princess. The knight pushes past the terrified teenager, stepping straight into the dusty room. His sharp red eyes quickly scan the area until they land exactly where they need to. Anastasia looks up at him, silently hoping her wretched state will spark some pity in his heart. Without hesitation, the massive knight drops to one knee before the tiny, scruffy girl. He respectfully introduces himself as Pian Parcial, the head knight of Verida's castle, here to properly escort her. This isn't just any guy, he's a legendary hero who ended a brutal 3-year war and slays mythical beasts for breakfast. He's also a highly respected holy knight bound by a strict vow of purity to the cathedral. The father finally snaps out of his shock, angrily asking what nonsense this guy is spouting about a princess. Pian completely shuts him down, officially declaring the little girl as Anastasia and Timos, the first princess of Santra. The abusive family is left absolutely paralyzed with shock, completely unable to process that their little punching bag is actually royalty. Pian pulls out an official document, stating that Princess Beatrice's will confirmed Anastasia's true identity. The family is completely floored, arguing that the princess died 3 years ago and never even got married. The mom gasps, realizing the toddler must be an illegitimate child. But Pian shuts them down, declaring that Anastasia legally inherits the first right of succession to the throne. He glares at the trembling peasants, casually reminding them that disrespecting the crown is punishable by death. Without missing a beat, he turns to the tiny princess and asks if she has anything to pack. She bluntly says no, ready to dip out of this nightmare. But the greedy mom suddenly panics and demands back pay for child support. Anastasia deadpans, absolutely sick of the endless nonsense in this house. Pian raises an eyebrow, asking if Princess Beatrice didn't already leave them a fortune. The mom sweats, lying through her teeth that the money wasn't nearly enough to raise a growing kid. Anastasia practically boils with rage, knowing this terrible woman blew the entire chest of treasure on gambling. Pian calmly tells them to send an invoice to the royal family, and the abusers instantly light up like it's Christmas morning. In her past lives, Anastasia would have just bolted from this cursed house immediately. But this time, she grabs a handful of Pian's cape to stop him from paying them a dime. She looks up at the towering knight, secretly knowing a massive plot twist about his true identity. Pointing right at her abusers, she completely throws them under the bus, exposing how they worked her like a dog and starved her daily. With fake tears welling in her eyes, she loudly calls them out for being awful people. Meanwhile, a quick lore drop reveals this continent was split in two and locked in a bloody thousand-year war. 3 years ago, Santra finally won thanks to Pian absolutely wrecking the battlefield, but they tragically lost their first princess. Later, the royal court found her hidden will, revealing the existence of a secret daughter. The palace maids relentlessly gossiped, claiming the father was a dirty mercenary from the enemy nation. This nasty rumor labeled Anastasia as a massive disgrace to the royal bloodline. It made her past lives incredibly miserable, always wondering why her mother chose such a terrible man. But finally, in this 10th regression, she figured out the wild truth. She had discovered a hidden video stone disguised inside a magic necklace. When she activated it, the artifact practically glowed with her mother's final message. Her mother's gentle voice echoed out, asking someone to bless her daughter. The memory projection showed Pian and the mysterious hooded figure completely fawning over baby Anastasia. The toddler's eyes go wide as she connects the dots. The hooded man who kissed her forehead and dropped her off in the woods was none other than Pian. In her past lives, Pian was always the one who came to collect her from the cabin. But after rescuing her, he would completely ice her out, acting like she didn't exist. She spent years watching him from afar in the Grand Palace. Whenever they accidentally made eye contact, he would instantly look away like she was radioactive. Over 9 brutal deaths, he didn't step up to protect her a single time. And the craziest realization of all, this absolute deadbeat is her actual father. She fumes, realizing the legendary Holy Knight was the irresponsible jerk who dumped her in the first place. Back in the present, she knows she can't survive royal politics in a tiny baby body. So, using her knowledge of the future, she decides to manipulate him into becoming her personal meat shield. She glares at him with pure villain energy, vowing to squeeze him totally dry. Pian's glowing red eyes narrow as he asks the family if the princess's accusations are true. The abusers instantly start sweating bullets, nervously laughing it off as basic discipline. But Anastasia isn't letting them off the hook, holding up her tiny hand as it glows with intense blue mana. Suddenly, a magical hologram bursts into the room, leaving everyone absolutely jaw-dropped. The projection puts them on full blast in 4K resolution, showing the dad calling her useless, the mom denying her food, and Andy bullying her. The family is terrified, completely baffled by how a toddler is casting spells. Pian is stunned too, knowing that magic users are incredibly rare and usually limited to high nobility. Anastasia secretly unlocked magic in her first life, but always died before she could actually master it. Now she smirks internally, forcing her deadbeat dad to watch a highlight reel of the exact abuse he left her in. Anastasia smirks internally, knowing that even if Pian ignores her, he definitely won't tolerate anyone insulting her mother. The magical projection replays the exact moment Andy called her mom a wicked witch who abandoned her. The hologram echoes Andy's insult about her tainted bloodline, and Pian's expression instantly darkens into pure, murderous rage. In the real world, Andy stumbles backward, stuttering out a pathetic apology now that he realizes he's been bullying actual royalty. Anastasia puts on an Oscar-worthy performance, cowering in fear while her abusive foster parents tremble like leaves. Andy tries to make a run for it, but gets absolutely blasted onto his back by a sudden surge of power. Pian steps forward, literal lightning and holy energy crackling around his boots as he glares down at the peasants. Fully enraged, the legendary knight scorches the room with divine power, completely disgusted that these abusers dared to ask for compensation. Anastasia watches in awe, getting a little spooked by the sheer aura, but secretly relieved to see that his love for her mother was genuinely real. Soon after, they safely board a lavish carriage, with Pian strictly instructing the tiny princess to sit properly for the ride. She obediently plops down onto the soft cushions, giving him a sweet, innocent nod. Pian sits rigidly across from her, creating a thick, awkward silence in the cabin. Anastasia gets ticked off, realizing he's actively avoiding her gaze again, and decides she absolutely won't let him get away with it. To break the ice, she shivers dramatically, hugging herself and whispering that she's freezing. Pian immediately drops his stoic act, jumping up in total panic at the thought of the kid being cold. He wraps her up like a massive, grumpy burrito, apologizing profusely for not packing any warm clothes. But Anastasia wiggles her little bare toes from under the blanket, insisting she's still chilly. With a heavy sigh, Pian softly asks for her permission before gently lifting her into his arms. He pulls her into a tight, protective hug against his broad chest. Anastasia instantly feels a soothing warmth wash over her, realizing he's using his precious divine power just to act as a human heater. She knows perfectly well why he pretends not to know her. Holy knights take strict vows of purity, and if the cathedral finds out he fathered a child, he'll brutally lose his eyes, hands, and title. He softly asks if she feels better, and as she touches his hand, a complicated feeling twists in her chest. Even though she understands the stakes, a part of her is still deeply angry. She glares up at him, thinking that no matter what his excuse is, he still abandoned her in a literal hellhole. She hardens her heart, resolving to just use this man for survival and dump him later. Flipping the switch back to her innocent act, she stares at him with massive, sparkling eyes and asks if he's an angel. She aggressively hypes him up, wildly mimicking his lightning magic and calling him a total superhero for punishing the bad guys. Pian quickly sets her back down, awkwardly deflecting the praise and claiming he's just a normal guy borrowing God's power. But then he gets serious, questioning how on earth a toddler managed to cast advanced projection magic. Since magic usually doesn't manifest until a kid turns 8, her little light show was completely unnatural. Anastasia lies through her teeth, claiming she just squeezed a shiny rock she found whenever she got bullied and the magic happened on its own. Pian buys the excuse, picturing her insanely talented mother and muttering that Anastasia truly takes after the late princess. Anastasia mentally fumes, extremely annoyed that he talks about her like she isn't his biological kid too. She imagines him as a literal block of ice, totally baffled by how her sweet mother ever fell for this rigid, blunt brick of a man. She pictures a super cringy scenario of him confessing his undying love, but immediately shuts it down because it feels entirely out of character. Then she imagines her mom making the first move, only for Pian to tragically reject her in the name of God. Staring at his insanely handsome face and long eyelashes, she concludes her mom was definitely just blinded by his good looks. Pushing the useless thoughts aside, Anastasia gets back to executing her master plan. She calls him Sir Angel again, politely asking for a massive favor. She demands they make a pit stop at the cathedral so she can pray, even though Pian insists the king wants her at the palace immediately. Anastasia hits him with the ultimate, devastating puppy dog pout, begging the devout knight to let her fulfill her holy duties. Pian folds like a cheap lawn chair, instantly agreeing to the detour while Anastasia mentally celebrates her successful manipulation. But suddenly, all the adrenaline leaves her tiny body, and her eyelids grow incredibly heavy. She slumps right over onto his lap, completely knocked out by the sheer exhaustion of just being a toddler. As the carriage rolls on, she decides to just catch some ZS and let her biological dad handle the rest. Meanwhile, back at the majestic Radio Palace, absolute chaos is erupting. A furious woman stands before the royal throne, completely losing her mind over the news of a new princess. This is Stella, the third princess and Anastasia's second aunt, screaming that accepting an illegitimate child will make them the laughingstock of the continent. The king slumps in his grand chair, rubbing his temples and admitting that he isn't exactly thrilled about the situation either. Meanwhile, back at the palace, King Ferdinand sighs heavily, completely refusing to believe this random kid is his late daughter Beatrice's child. Princess Stella is absolutely losing it, screeching that the baby actually belongs to a soldier from an enemy empire. She heavily disrespects her dead sister for messing around with a commoner, completely dropping all royal decorum. But her older sister, Princess Aquila, coldly tells her to shut her mouth and act like actual royalty. Aquila turns to the king, desperately asking if the child's father really is a total mystery. Ferdinand confirms that the late princesses will only mention a soldier she met in the dangerous Forest of Darkness, leaving them with zero hard facts. Stella keeps running her mouth, but Aquila immediately snaps at her to cut the garbage. Stepping up, Aquila warns the king that this situation could literally shatter the foundation of their entire kingdom. If they officially acknowledge the kid, she legally gets the right to the throne, making her the first illegitimate ruler in Santra's history. Stella practically foams at the mouth, demanding they just kick the toddler to the curb before anyone finds out. Suddenly, Pontifex Ismail steps into the room, announcing that they need to consider a divine prophecy that dropped just yesterday. Everyone is stunned, knowing that heaven hasn't handed down a prophecy in over a century. Ismail reveals the message. The child arriving today is destined to bring light to the entire kingdom. Stella goes completely feral, totally refusing to accept it and demanding to know what light even means. Ismail calmly explains that it doesn't necessarily mean she'll take the throne. But because the prophecy literally labeled her a child of God, they legally cannot expel her from the royal family even if they hate it. The princesses are left absolutely speechless by this massive plot twist. Cut back to Pian, who is gently waking Anastasia up as they finally arrive at the Grand Cathedral. She yawns adorably, totally surprised the long trip went by so fast. Turns out she passed out on his lap for the entire ride, leaving her to wonder if his massive legs are totally cramped. Pian steps out holding her securely, ordering the nearby knights to tell the king they're making a pit stop to pray. Anastasia turns up the cute dial to max, brightly thanking Sir Angel for listening to her. The nearby knights completely short-circuit, utterly baffled to hear someone calling their terrifying captain an angel. Pian shoots them a deadly death glare, making Anastasia wonder just how much of a menace he is at work. She secretly notes that this child of light prophecy is the only reason she's currently getting royal protection. But internally, she thinks the prophecy is total garbage since her own life has been pitch black so far. Pian carries her into the incredibly lavish room of prayer, setting her down gently. He explains that praying must be done entirely alone. Sweating nervously, he quickly excuses himself, leaving her by the massive holy pool. The second the door shuts, Anastasia drops the innocent toddler act, thrilled that her master plan is working. She stares up at the giant statue of Lux, the god of light that this entire nation heavily worships. She admits she honestly hates this god, but addresses him anyway now that she knows her true father. She clenches her tiny fists, revealing that she originally thought her curse of endless regression was a divine punishment for her dad's sins. But it isn't her fault. She flashes back to being burned, frozen, and mauled by beasts in her past lives. Standing up boldly, she declares she has suffered way more than enough. She has literally never survived past the age of 12. She walks right up to the edge of the holy water, begging to just live a normal life this time. But as she takes a dramatic step into the pool, she instantly realizes the water is way deeper than it looks. She plunges straight to the bottom like a literal rock. Thrashing around, she starts desperately blowing bubbles, wondering if her whole plan just totally backfired. She's actively drowning, mentally screaming for her dad to come save her. Reaching out toward the surface, she's terrified she's going to catch her 10th death just by slipping in a giant puddle. Suddenly, Pian absolutely bursts through the water, snatching her up in a total panic. He drops to his knees on the marble floor, clutching her tiny body and desperately yelling to see if she's okay. Anastasia violently coughs up a lungful of holy water, totally wrecked by the experience. She looks up and is completely stunned to see Pian looking genuinely devastated, like he's actually terrified of losing her. The moment is interrupted when other priests come rushing into the room. Pian snaps back to reality, his glowing red eyes wide with shock at his own intense reaction. A blonde priest quickly uses magic to dry the princess off, leaving Pian to quietly hold his daughter, still completely shaken. Anastasia actually faints, knocked out by the intense stabilizing effect of Pian's massive divine healing power. A group of panicked priests rush into the room after hearing the commotion, finding the soaked knight holding the tiny princess. They point out that Pian was so completely shaken he didn't even hear them calling his name. The female priests step in to take care of the kid, firmly telling the drenched knight to go change his clothes. Pian gently holds the sleeping toddler close, softly stating he will take her to the king tomorrow. Half asleep, Anastasia mumbles, asking the knight if he's an angel. But Pian instantly drops the warmth, coldly rejecting the title as he pulls away. He glares down with a heavy heart, internally reminding himself that he literally cannot get any closer to her. A dark flashback hits, showing that getting too attached usually ends in absolute tragedy. He remembers a strict warning about the magical image stone, that he shouldn't look at it unless it belongs to him. The memory reminds him of the painful consequences of wanting something that isn't his. Sometime later, Anastasia bolts upright in a massive, incredibly soft bed, immediately panicking. A blonde priest happily announces she's awake, while Anastasia looks around, totally confused by her new surroundings. The priest holds out her magical necklace, asking if this is what she's frantically searching for. She clutches her chest, explaining it's the only precious memento her mother left behind. The priests quietly exchange knowing looks, realizing the poor kid has no idea the necklace actually contains a top-secret video record of her birth. Still on edge, Anastasia tilts her head and asks who these strangers even are. The blonde guy introduces himself as Sierra, a second-class priest of the cathedral. He introduces the two female priests, Rosa and Yus, who are busy holding back squeals because they think the princess is as cute as a little cotton ball. Anastasia is honestly stunned. She hasn't met this many decent human beings in her last 9 lives combined. Sierra politely apologizes for washing and changing her themselves, explaining the palace maids were completely useless and unavailable. Anastasia drops a massive, genuine smile and thanks them for their help. Suddenly, her tiny stomach lets out a massive rumble, totally ruining the sweet moment. Sierra immediately goes into full panic mode, screaming at the girls to sprint to the kitchen and grab food in under a minute. Moments later, Anastasia is literally crying tears of joy over a simple bowl of potato and bacon soup. She gets super emotional, realizing how long it's been since she had clean clothes, a warm bed, and an actual edible meal. The priests fuss over how terribly skinny she is, promising she'll get way better food at the royal palace. But Anastasia instantly sweats, knowing from her past lives that the palace chefs serve absolute garbage and she's terrified of getting poisoned. Plus, the palace maids are notorious for ditching work and forcing the tiny princess to do all the heavy chores herself. As Sierra gently wipes her mouth, she totally wishes she could just keep these nice people by her side forever. She happily thanks them again, calling the whole group a bunch of angels. Rosa playfully teases her, warning that if she calls them angels, Sir Parcial might get super jealous since she gave him that nickname first. The priests gossip about how Parcial was completely flustered earlier, acting more embarrassed than he ever did on a literal battlefield. Anastasia blinks in surprise, completely thrown off by that piece of information. She flashes back to his tear-streaked, devastated face when he pulled her from the holy water. But her trust issues instantly kick in, refusing to believe that rigid ice block actually cares about her. She rationally concludes that he was just terrified of getting fired by the king if she died on his watch. With a big day ahead of her, Anastasia finishes her meal and decides to get some more sleep. Tucking herself in, she mentally builds up her emotional walls, absolutely refusing to catch feelings for her deadbeat dad. The next morning arrives with bright sunlight pouring into the cathedral. The priests completely lose their minds, absolutely swooning over how insanely cute the princess looks. She is wearing a pristine, custom-fitted temple uniform, looking like a literal porcelain doll. She remembers how in her past lives, she always arrived at the palace looking like a total beggar and got instantly kicked out for being a messy embarrassment. But this time, checking herself out in the mirror with her polished new drip, she officially declares herself ready for battle. They finally arrive at the massive, intimidating Radio Palace, which Anastasia fully views as enemy territory. Pian waits by the carriage and she instantly turns on the charm, happily running toward her angel. Pian coldly addresses her, keeping his face totally stoic. She hits him with her ultimate, dazzling smile, showing off her flashy new outfit and asking if she looks cute. Without missing a beat, Pian completely ignores the question, flatly telling her to get in the wagon. While the priests in the background are literally dying from her cuteness, Anastasia stares at her dad's back, completely dumbfounded by how a guy can be such an absolute brick wall. Anastasia waves an adorable goodbye to her new favorite priests. The trio is totally heartbroken to see the tiny princess go, asking her to visit them sometimes. She leans out the carriage window, promising her angel sisters that she'll make it possible to see them every single day. With that bold claim, the royal carriage rolls away toward the main palace. Inside the grand throne room, Pian finally presents Anastasia to the King of Santra. King Ferdinand praises the commander for taking on another tough mission right after the war. But he quickly cuts to the chase, demanding to see his supposed granddaughter. Pian steps aside to reveal Anastasia, who is trembling uncontrollably as she feels a sinister glare piercing her soul. She knows her grandmother passed away long ago, leaving her wicked Aunt Akola in charge of the inner palace. In her past lives, Anastasia was completely at Akola's mercy. She was isolated in the tiniest, dustiest room of the palace, totally surrounded by enemies. Eventually, they framed her for black magic, resulting in her being executed by an angry mob like a literal witch. And where was her deadbeat dad during all this suffering? Bro was off fighting random monsters in a dark forest miles away. Not knowing her trauma, Pian gently pats her shoulder, trying to reassure her that it's just her grandfather. Anastasia is completely thrown off by this sudden, gentle comfort from the ice cold night. She realizes he just assumes she has stage fright, totally oblivious to the real monsters in the room. Stealing her nerves, she steps forward to officially announce her presence. King Ferdinand stares at her, immediately noting she looks so much like her late mother that they don't even need a DNA test. Pontifex Ismail agrees, pointing out her striking resemblance to young Princess Beatrice. Meanwhile, her bratty Aunt Stella clicks her tongue, loudly calling the kid ugly. But Anastasia notices the king's eyes hold a lot less disgust than in her previous lives. Knowing exactly how to manipulate him, she turns on the charm offensive. In the past, she faced him as an ignorant, unpolished commoner, but now, she hits him with the ultimate cute attack, innocently tilting her head and calling him grandpa. The king visibly flinches, surprised by the sweet title before pointing out her matching hair and eyes. His tone softens as he formally introduces himself as King Ferdinand, officially acknowledging her as Princess Beatrice's daughter. Playing her part perfectly, Anastasia dramatically gasps, acting like she's in a dream and claiming the god of light's words came true. The king is instantly hooked, leaning forward to ask what Lord Lux told her. She spins a massive lie, claiming the deity appeared in her dream a few days ago. According to her fake vision, Lux told the bringer of light not to fear, promising her suffering would end once she met her real family. Beside her, Pian sweats bullets, realizing this tiny child is flawlessly lying to the king's face. King Ferdinand absolutely leaps out of his throne, frantically asking the high priest if he leaked the secret oracle. Ismail swears he didn't tell a single soul, leaving everyone completely mind-blown. Aunt Stella and Aunt Aquila look absolutely stunned that the kid apparently received a direct divine revelation. The king approaches her, totally convinced the gods haven't abandoned Santra, and eagerly asks for more details. Anastasia drops the absolute hammer, claiming Lux promised his favorite angel would protect her. She points right at the strongest holy knight in the country, locking Pian directly into her trap. She loudly declares Pian is the angel who punished the bad guys and saved her from drowning yesterday. The king panics at the drowning part, forcing Pian to downplay it as a minor stumble into the holy water. Ferdinand scoffs, grumbling about how quickly things go wrong when you take your eyes off a kid for 1 second. But hooked on her prophecy, the king officially proposes that Pian becomes the princess's personal escort. Anastasia mentally cheers, thrilled her master plan is coming together flawlessly. But Pian instantly throws a wrench in it, bluntly rejecting the king's order. He smoothly uses his duty as a paladin as an excuse, claiming she needs a proper royal knight instead. Anastasia practically pulls her hair out, mentally screaming that she used all her best tricks just for him to dodge it. Suddenly, Aunt Aquila steps in, totally backing Pian up and offering to send one of her own knights. She hides her sinister motives behind royal law, wanting total control over the new princess's security. She turns to the high priest, fully expecting him to agree with her strict interpretation of the rules. But Ismail gives a sly smile, ready to counter her move and keep the holy knight exactly where he belongs. High Priest Ismail smoothly intervenes, suggesting they can't force Pian and should focus on the princess's future first. Anastasia shoots her aunts an absolute death glare, silently daring them to try and ruin her plans. A new guy steps up, introducing himself as Conrad Mikkel from the Second Royal Knights, assigned as her official escort. Anastasia instantly recognizes that smug face, knowing this guy is less of a knight and more of a massive flirt who chases maids all day. Disgusted by his total lack of professionalism, she flatly announces she's leaving and hops off the couch. She immediately grabs a fistful of Pian's cape, begging him not to leave her alone with this clown. Pian looks deeply conflicted, but softly promises to do his absolute best to protect her even if he isn't her official guard. Anastasia shivers while clinging to his cape, internally relieved she hasn't been assassinated yet but noting how freezing cold this guy is. Pian awkwardly asks her to stop calling him an angel. He rigidly explains that since he's not an actual celestial being, using that title is highly disrespectful to Lord Lux. Anastasia mentally rages, absolutely baffled that a guy who abandoned his own kid has the nerve to worry about religious disrespect. Conrad smugly chimes in, reminding her that his name is Fion Parcial, knowing the stoic knight won't talk back to a toddler. Anastasia internally groans, realizing that manipulating this brick wall of a man is going to be incredibly difficult. Pian sighs, telling her it doesn't matter what she calls him as long as it isn't Angel. Hearing that, a mischievous smile spreads across her face as she plots her next move. Looking up with total innocence, she drops an absolute nuke, asking if she can just call him Papa. In her mind, she's doing a full villain dance, proudly wearing devil horns and loving the chaos she just caused. Pian's glowing red eyes widen in sheer, unadulterated shock. He immediately turns his back on her, sweating bullets and stammering that the Papa nickname definitely doesn't work either. Anastasia dramatically pouts, calling out his hypocrisy since he just said anything but Angel was fine. Pian flusters, nervously explaining that claiming royal bloodlines is strictly against the law. But she pushes harder, hitting him with the puppy dog eyes and asking if she can at least use it when they're totally alone. She latches onto his arm, completely refusing to let him wiggle out of this. Pian tries to detach himself, coldly stating they won't even see each other much since they live and work in different places. Anastasia's expression drops, her voice turning genuinely desperate as the rejection cuts deep. She stares right through him, bluntly asking if he's really that much of a coward to run away from being her father when given the perfect chance. She repeatedly calls him a bad guy, letting years of pent-up resentment bleed into her voice. Genuine tears stream down her face as she calls herself a complete idiot for expecting even a shred of warmth from him. Seeing her break down, Pian completely panics, totally unequipped to handle a crying child. Conrad finally notices the commotion and casually strolls over, shocked to see the terrifying commander in distress. The flirtatious knight actually scolds Pian, casually pointing out that it should be a massive honor to receive a special nickname from the princess. Anastasia rubs her teary eyes, dropping her head in defeat and softly apologizing for pushing his boundaries. With one final, heart-wrenching sniffle, she asks one last time if she can call him Papa. Pian completely folds like a cheap lawn chair, quietly whispering yes. Anastasia instantly cheers up, mentally celebrating her massive win while also plotting to get Conrad absolutely fired tomorrow. Fast forward to 4 a.m. the next day, and the king is already up, heading to the chapel while his aide complains about the freezing morning air. King Ferdinand sharply scolds his assistant, strictly stating that praying should be the very first thing done upon waking. He preaches that sloth is the ultimate sin that leads straight to hell. But the aide frantically shushes him, pointing out that someone is already inside the prayer room. Inside, Anastasia is perfectly posed on her knees, praying like an absolute saint under the glowing lights. The king awkwardly clears his throat to announce his presence. Anastasia jumps slightly, acting completely surprised to see her grandfather up this early. Ferdinand demands to know why the heck a tiny child is wandering around the massive chapel completely alone. She immediately spins a flawless lie, claiming she heard Lord Lux's voice calling her and just followed it here. The king buys it but quickly asks where her assigned escort went. When she innocently says he isn't here, Ferdinand's face darkens with pure rage, realizing Conrad is actively sabotaging her from day one. Anastasia plays the perfect pacifist, sweetly asking the king not to scold her knight while internally screaming for Conrad to perish. Ferdinand tells her not to worry about it, his voice softening as he asks what she was praying so desperately for. She looks up at the golden cross, sadly stating that she was begging for forgiveness. Dropping her gaze, she perfectly executes the victim card, leaving the king totally wrapped around her little finger. King Ferdinand is totally baffled, wondering how a literal toddler could possibly be a sinner. Turns out, the Kingdom of Santra has a strict law where citizens must worship at a temple every 15 days, or they're branded as criminals. Playing the ultimate victim card, Anastasia fake cries, admitting she hasn't worshipped in a year because her abusive foster parents wouldn't let her. The king immediately defends her, furious at the peasant's blasphemy and assuring her Lord Lux would never call her a sinner. But Anastasia clutches her chest, dramatically whining that her tiny heart still feels incredibly guilty. She drops her main trap, begging her grandfather to let her stay at the temple instead of the palace, so she can see Lux every day. Ferdinand is confused, pointing out that the royal palace is literally right next door to the temple. She puts on a traumatized face, whispering that the palace was just too heartbreaking while the temple clears her head. The king's heart absolutely melts, filled with pity for his poor traumatized granddaughter. He stares up at the giant statue of Lux, genuinely wondering if this child is under the deity's direct influence. He remembers Sir Pian's insane report from the day before. The knight had confirmed the toddler actually used advanced projection magic, though she's too young for an official test. Ferdinand compares her to his late daughter Beatrice, who also manifested magic at a super young age, realizing this kid is built different. He briefly questions why the god of light would choose an illegitimate child for his holy prophecy. But he quickly brushes it off, accepting that mere mortals can't understand the complex will of the gods. He decides the best move is to just keep a close eye on her. Yielding to her puppy dog eyes, the king officially grants her permission to stay at the temple. Anastasia beams with a bright "thank you, Grandpa," while internally cheering that she completely outplayed him. She happily mentally checks off her master to-do list with only one major goal left, making Pian her personal bodyguard. Staring out at the massive estate, she admits her deadbeat dad is proving way harder to manipulate than the literal king. Back in the temple halls, the priestesses absolutely lose their minds with joy when they hear she's staying permanently. Suddenly, the mood shifts as someone spots Sir Pian strolling through the courtyard. The stoic knight looks up, a bit confused as he spots the little princess watching him. Anastasia flashes a tiny, calculated smile, ready to kick off the next phase of her master plan. Meanwhile, the junior priestesses are busy frantically gossiping about the new royal arrival. They huddle up in the halls, absolutely dying to know what the mysterious princess looks like. The ones who saw her describe her as a literal living doll with fluffy white hair and giant, sparkling eyes. But the rumor mill quickly spins into overdrive, questioning why the royal family dumped her at the temple instead of the palace. Just as they start whispering about who her real father could be, an older priestess snaps at them. She strictly reminds them that the high priest ordered everyone to keep their mouths shut about royal secrets. Later, as Pian carries Anastasia through the courtyard, she notices the staff whispering wherever she goes. She completely understands, knowing a sudden illegitimate princess crashing at the temple is top-tier gossip. The nice priestesses catch up to them, nervously asking if the princess is okay eating in the crowded main dining hall. Anastasia brightly declares she wants to eat with her new sisters. The sheer cuteness of her statement absolutely obliterates the priestesses' hearts. She remembers that since snobby noble maids refused to work in the temple, these three sweet commoners volunteered to raise her. Entering the massive, bustling dining hall, Anastasia feels a wave of gratitude for this peaceful new life. In her tragic past lives, crowds gave her massive anxiety, but now her new friends tell her to just grab a seat while they fetch the food. Wanting to build her reputation, she scans the massive room for the most strategic place to sit. Her eyes lock onto the absolute perfect target. It's Pian sitting all by himself and wearing casual clothes for the first time ever. Despite being the most famous guy in the room, there is a massive, empty dead zone of tables surrounding him. Anastasia mentally roasts him, completely agreeing that his terrifying, icy personality makes him totally worth shunning. But she forces her assigned priest to carry her right up to the terrifying knight, cheerfully wishing him a good morning. She loudly calls him Papa, fully ignoring his intensely serious, deadpan glare. She figures if she just relentlessly forces herself into his daily life, the icy knight will eventually thaw out and care about her. The poor priestesses arrive with the food trays, sweating buckets under Pian's silent, intimidating stare. They set down a massive, beautiful plate of fluffy crepes covered in syrup and berries. The priests happily dote on her while she totally devours the sweet breakfast. But she pauses when she glances over at Pian, realizing her tough, stoic dad is just eating a sad, plain bowl of red soup. Anastasia holds up a sweet strawberry on her fork, happily offering Pian a bite of her crepe. But the stoic knight completely avoids her gaze, bluntly claiming he doesn't like sweets. She tilts her head, innocently asking how anyone could hate something so delicious. Meanwhile, the surrounding priests start whispering, noticing how perfectly Anastasia's eyes and hair match the commander's. They definitely see the striking resemblance, with Sierra noting his hair is the exact same shade of honey blonde. Anastasia ignores the gossip and plays up her cute act, loudly declaring how happy she is to eat with her angels. She hits them with a devastatingly adorable stare, asking if they can all eat together like this every single day. Unable to handle the overwhelming cute energy, Pian abruptly stands up from the table. He hastily excuses himself, completely abandoning his mostly uneaten bowl of soup. Anastasia gasps, playfully warning him that Lord Lux will absolutely smite him for wasting food. Pian speedwalks out of the dining hall, feeling the intense, judgmental stares of literally everyone burning into the back of his neck. Anastasia giggles to herself, totally thrilled that her plan to fluster the icy knight is working perfectly. As Pian escapes, a faint red blush actually creeps across his usually frozen face. Anastasia does a little mental victory dance, realizing that teasing her deadbeat dad is actually incredibly fun. But her little stunt kicks off a massive chain reaction, and soon wild rumors are flying all over the palace. Aunt Aquila takes a sip of her tea, totally disgusted by the sudden rumor that Pian is Anastasia's biological father. She completely misreads the situation, assuming this is a highly calculated political strategy to win public sympathy. She immediately points the finger at High Priest Ismail, convinced he's the mastermind pulling the strings. Stella is absolutely baffled, asking why the High Priest would orchestrate such a crazy plot. Aquila pieces it together, realizing the fake oracle was the perfect excuse to trap the new princess inside the temple's walls. As someone who doesn't believe in the gods at all, Aquila sees right through the divine prophecy nonsense. She knows religion is just a tool for control, completely dismissing the so-called holy light. She figures the temple is just using the illegitimate child to sink their claws into the royal family. With the king suddenly relying heavily on the high priest, Aquila realizes her own path to the throne is in serious danger. She furiously concludes that the temple wants to turn the entire royal bloodline into their personal puppets. With her sharp eyes narrowing, Aquila resolves to face this political war head-on. A few days later, Anastasia is lazily rolling around on a plush couch in her room. Sierra nervously approaches the tiny princess, looking incredibly guilty. Ever since that day in the dining hall, Pian has been dodging Anastasia like she's a literal plague. Sierra tries her best to comfort the toddler, making up excuses that Sir Parcial is just super busy with official work. But Anastasia immediately turns on the waterworks, rubbing her eyes and dropping a fake sob. The three priestesses completely panic, absolutely shattered by the sight of the crying princess. Anastasia dramatically claims that her papa hates her because she bothered him, playing their emotions like a fiddle. Determined to fix this, a terrified Sierra actually marches outside to confront the towering commander. She nervously begs him to just spend a little time with the princess, even though she's practically shaking in her boots just talking to him. Pian gives her a cold, empty stare, asking what the problem is. Sierra pleads with him to just have one breakfast with Anastasia, saying the kid desperately misses him. Pian immediately shuts it down, bluntly stating that seeing the princess is just too hard for him. Sierra refuses to back down, arguing that the poor child just wants a father figure since she's totally alone in the temple. Pian looks away, guilt flashing across his face, but he still refuses to cave. Suddenly, a panicked knight comes sprinting across the courtyard, desperately calling for the commander. The knight halts, completely out of breath, warning Pian that absolute chaos has broken out in the rumor mill. Back inside, knights and maids are gossiping relentlessly about the princess's true parentage. They recall how Princess Beatrice was supposedly locked in the dark forest over a year ago. Since that forest borders the enemy nation of Kalissa, the spicy rumors claim Anastasia's dad is actually an enemy mercenary. But the newest, hottest rumor points the finger right at the kingdom's strongest holy knight. Pian's red eyes flare with intense fury, demanding to know who dared to spread such dangerous nonsense. The poor subordinate practically cries, swearing the rumor just exploded out of nowhere and he's only reporting it. Pian absolutely snaps, ordering his men to crack down on the gossip and severely punish anyone caught spreading the lies. As the knight scurries away in terror, Sierra awkwardly breaks the tension, quietly reminding Pian that the princess is actually scheduled to go out today. Outside, Pian's face looks incredibly grim, completely stressed out by the exploding rumors. Sierra spots him and sees a golden opportunity, stepping up to let him know that the princess was crying because she thought he hated her. Pian instantly breaks his stoic composure, totally shocked that he made the kid cry. Sierra lays on the guilt trip super thick, confirming that the tiny princess was completely bawling her eyes out. Utterly defeated, the commander promises to visit her right after his current mission. Sierra mentally cheers, thrilled that her little white lie worked perfectly. Pian sets his jaw with a determined look, ready to clear his schedule. As he heads out, the usually gloomy palace actually feels a little less cold to him now. Meanwhile, Anastasia is having the time of her life, absolutely thrilled to finally be inside the massive royal library. She easily gets her tiny hands on an advanced magic book that she could never reach in her past lives. But suddenly she overhears some maids whispering nearby. They harshly criticize the little girl, gossiping about her thoughtless behavior in the library. They start questioning her true bloodline, loudly wondering who her real father is. Before things get worse, Conrad bursts into the aisle like an overenergetic golden retriever. The maids quickly scramble away while Conrad apologizes for losing track of her. He spots the heavy magic book in her hands and completely freaks out, calling her an absolute genius for reading at her age. Later, Anastasia sits at a desk, realizing that none of her awful future has actually changed yet. She remembers how her evil Aunt Aquila didn't bother her at first in her previous lives, but eventually turned the whole kingdom against her. Grabbing a quill, she starts writing down a full recap of her past 9 tragic deaths to strategize. In her first life, she showed off her magic way too early. But when a series of massive disasters hit Santra like plagues, droughts, and monster attacks, the people turned on her. Since she couldn't stop the calamities, her title as the Child of God became super suspicious. Aunt Aquila then planted a dark magic book in her room, getting her tied to a stake and executed by an angry mob. In her second life, extreme PTSD stopped her from casting spells, causing her internal mana to literally explode. Her third life, she ran away at 3 years old and got mauled by wild wolves. Her fourth and fifth lives ended in the dark forest and at the hands of enemy mercenaries. She starved selling flowers in her sixth, was assassinated in her seventh and eighth, and got blown up in her ninth. Just thinking about the endless loop of death gives her a massive headache. She concludes that to break the cycle, she absolutely needs to build her strength and stack up some serious cash so she can flee the country. Missing out on either of those means instant deaths. But to get the power and money she needs, she can't just lay low like she did before. She realizes she has to step up and directly fight Aunt Aquila. Suddenly, Conrad and the priestesses burst into the room, totally interrupting her villain arc plotting. They frantically ask if she's bored, but she sweetly reassures them that reading is super fun. Then Pian awkwardly appears in the doorway, standing there like a massive, frozen statue. Anastasia is genuinely shocked he showed up, clutching her book on the royal family tree. The book had just revealed a crucial detail about how the monarchy works. She realizes that true royals receive a middle name 1 month after birth, but she never got one. Because she's an ignored, illegitimate child, she was totally deprived of that royal right. And without a middle name, the stuck-up nobles will just keep treating her like trash. Spotting Pian, she decides to play her trap, putting on her saddest face and asking if she's the daughter of a bad person. She grips her book tightly, whispering that she knows she doesn't carry noble blood. But before he can even answer, she drops the sad act and happily runs toward him, yelling Papa. Pian just stares down at her, looking incredibly grim, making her wonder if he's actually furious. Instead, he drops to one knee right in front of her, his voice dead serious. He tells her not to listen to the vicious rumors, firmly declaring that she definitely carries great noble blood. The priestesses watch from the doorway, absolutely melting at how sweet and protective he's being. Anastasia realizes the situation is way more intense than she expected. She figures Pian thinks she's genuinely heartbroken over the rumors insulting her mother. Totally using the misunderstanding to her advantage, she hugs him tightly, locking in the ultimate bodyguard to keep her safe. Burying his face into his dad's shoulder, the little prince drops the crocodile tears and puts on his best innocent voice, claiming he thought his papa hated him. Pian's icy exterior melts just a bit as he whispers that he doesn't hate anyone. But internally, the stoic paladin is battling his own strict holy vows, reminding himself that showing deep affection is a major sin. Anastasia rolls his eyes in secret, deciding not to push his luck too far with the old man. Later, Pian meets up with a royal official to discuss the upcoming year-end party. The official is totally caught off guard. It's super rare for the legendary commander to ever ask for a personal favor. Pian demands they add Anastasia's middle name ceremony to the event schedule to finally crush the nasty rumors about his bloodline. The official agrees, though he warns that making such a bold move might stir up even more drama. Pian doesn't care, his mind is made up. Fast forward to the highly anticipated year-end prayer ceremony. Since it's the first massive gathering since the war ended 3 years ago, the turnout is absolutely wild. The palace courtyard is packed with gossiping nobles dressed to the nines. For Anastasia, this is his first time facing the cutthroat nobility under such intense pressure. To make matters worse, he's forced to sit right next to his worst enemies. He grumbles internally about having to share oxygen with his evil Aunt Aquila and her bratty kid, Stella. But the tiny prince slaps on a fake smile, determined to look completely unbothered. Aquila immediately starts probing, flashing a toxic smirk and asking if he wants to return to the palace since temple life must be so uncomfortable. Anastasia plays the oblivious toddler card, cheerfully shouting that he loves the temple because everyone is super nice to him. Aquila's smile doesn't reach her eyes as she coldly reminds him that he'll have to return to the royal palace eventually. The little prince squints at her, wondering what kind of sketchy trap she's brewing in that head of hers. Suddenly, the grand temple bells start ringing, signaling the start of the main event. Looking at the massive crowd, Anastasia starts sweating bullets. He clutches his chest, knowing that if he looks even a little bit scared, these nobles will eat him alive. But then the grand doors swing open and Pian makes his entrance. Anastasia is totally caught off guard by his dad's immaculate drip. He can't help but admire how ridiculously handsome the paladin looks in his full ceremonial gear. He mentally slaps himself for fanboying over his own biological father's good looks. He scolds himself to snap out of it and focus on his own survival. Just then, their eyes lock from across the room. The official takes the podium, announcing that before the main prayers, they need to honor the hero of Santra. Pian strides up the aisle like an absolute boss. The noble ladies in the crowd are practically drooling over him. But there are definitely some haters glaring at him from the sidelines. The official praises Pian for risking his life on the front lines for 3 straight years to secure their victory. The crowd erupts into applause as Pian receives his well-deserved war medal. Anastasia notices a few bitter nobles stubbornly refusing to clap for the kingdom's savior. He gets ticked off at their sheer disrespect, but quickly reminds himself he has bigger fish to fry right now. After a solemn prayer for the fallen, it's finally time for the main event. The official loudly announces the start of Prince Anastasia's naming coronation. Even the king watches closely as the ceremony begins. Anastasia steps up to the altar looking like a literal angel. But internally, his heart is pounding out of his chest as hundreds of judgmental eyes lock onto him. The official stands beside a glowing pedestal, ready to conduct the holy blessing. The ritual is supposed to be super simple. Wooden name tags are tossed into a magical flame with holy water. Whichever name tag survives the fire without a single scorch mark will become his official royal middle name. Anastasia watches the priest grab the box of names, silently praying for a cool one. But the second the ritual starts, the holy flame suddenly violently reacts. Anastasia instantly shoots a death glare at his Aunt Aquila, realizing she just hijacked the magic. The crowd erupts into chaotic whispers, calling the corrupted flame a terrible omen. Anastasia fumes silently, realizing that someone deliberately sabotaged the ceremonial fire to make him look bad. The crowd gasps in horror as the holy flame suddenly flickers and dies completely. The official tries to calm him down, promising to reignite it, but Anastasia tells him it's fine. He knows that if he lets this go, the bad omen rumor will ruin his reputation forever. Right on cue, the gossiping nobles start whispering that he's a fake who lost God's favor. Deciding he's had enough of their nonsense, the tiny prince raises his hand. He chants a high-level spell, summoning a massive, glowing magic circle right in front of everyone. The entire hall goes wild as the nobles scream in total disbelief. Even Aunt Aquila and Stella are left speechless, unable to process a 4-year-old using intermediate elemental magic. The crowd erupts into chaos, arguing whether they just witnessed an actual miracle. Anastasia smirks internally, knowing the best way to bury a scandal is to flex an even bigger feat. With the room thoroughly stunned, the official quickly reignites the holy fire to finish the ritual. He reaches into the vessel and pulls out the winning wooden tag. Looking at the inscription, he proudly announces the new middle name, Lumiel. Anastasia freezes in absolute shock at the name. He groans internally, realizing it's directly tied to the god Lux, causing another wave of dramatic gasps from the nobles. The tiny prince gets dizzy, mentally facepalming over how ridiculously extra his new name is. Just as the official tries to wrap things up, a booming voice suddenly interrupts the room. Duke Orleans, a high-ranking minister, steps forward with a cold glare. He brazenly announces that the ministers refuse to endorse this ceremony. The official frowns and asks him to explain his sudden objection. The Duke argues that the royal family hasn't formally addressed the mystery of the prince's biological father. He brings up the dirty rumor that Anastasia's father was an enemy mercenary, causing Pian to tense up. Anastasia gulps nervously, cursing his late mother's messy cover story. The official tries to defuse the situation, stating that the late princess's wishes were respected and the king accepted the boy. But Duke Orleans slams his fist, yelling that it makes no sense to welcome enemy blood into the royal line. The rest of the corrupt nobles quickly jump on the bandwagon, shouting in agreement. The official tries to explain the sacred final request left by Princess Beatrice before her death. He reminds them that she specifically asked to bring light back to the kingdom through her child. But the Duke dismisses it as nonsense, refusing to back down. He boldly claims that no enemy bloodline should ever sit near the throne. Suddenly, King Ferdinand snaps, slamming his fist down and roaring in defense of his late daughter. The king firmly declares that the divine naming proves the child is blessed, and his decision is final. He glares daggers at Duke Orleans, asking if he dares to open rebellion against the crown. Anastasia lets out a massive sigh of relief, clutching his tiny chest as his heart finally stops racing. Pian gazes down at him with a stoic yet protective expression, silently letting his son know he's got his back. A few days pass and life returns to normal back at the temple. His caretakers rush over in a panic, asking if the crazy magic rumors from the party are actually true. Anastasia plays dumb, holding up a basic magic book and claiming he just practiced a little bit. The caretakers gush with pride, swooning over how much he takes after his brilliant mother. Hearing them praise her, Anastasia thinks back to Pian saying the exact same thing. Realizing it's no longer taboo, the curious prince softly asks them what his mother was really like. Sierra's eyes light up as she gushes about how stunningly beautiful and insanely strong Princess Beatrice was. She reveals that his mom was a once-in-a-century genius who dropped new magical theories every few days. She adds that she was as kind and cheerful as she was smart, loved by everyone around her. Anastasia's cheeks flush red as he listens to stories about his mother for the very first time. The caretaker scoops him up in a huge hug, predicting he'll grow up to be an even greater magician. Anastasia feels a warmth in his heart, though he feels sad that such an amazing woman was erased from history over an illegitimate child. His mood instantly flips as he glares over at Pian standing quietly nearby. Pouting adorably, the tiny prince decides that since his deadbeat dad is so annoying, the whole tragic mess is entirely his fault. Later on, Anastasia reflects that even though he's gotten closer to his dad, the guy has been totally MIA lately. He wonders how he can lock the Paladin down as his official knight. His caretaker Yuzu takes him out for a stroll, noticing he seems a bit down since the other maids are busy. Anastasia thinks about how Pian is swamped with training new recruits, realizing Yuzu totally read his mind. But he quickly cheers up, cheerfully declaring he's perfectly fine since he gets to go on a date with her. Yuzu melts at his cuteness, and they agree to just have a super fun day together. She brings him to a breathtaking, secret location. It's the Royal Palace Garden, a highly restricted VIP zone that stays lush and green even in the dead of winter thanks to some heavy-duty magic. Anastasia is absolutely buzzing, though he finds it pretty ironic that he escaped the dangerous palace just to play in its backyard. Yuzu goes to set up a fancy tea party, warning the little prince not to wander off too far. The tiny prince waddles through the blooming roses, mesmerized by the magical flowers. He suddenly remembers his tragic past lives, where he was always locked in a dark room and could only watch the world from a tiny window. Flashing a genuine smile, he thinks that maybe this 10th life is actually going to be a good one. But as he's walking, he spots a mysterious back door left wide open. He remembers Yuzu's warning to stay put, knowing he really shouldn't snoop. But his curiosity totally overpowers his common sense, pulling him toward the entrance like a magnet. He slowly pushes the heavy green door open, peeking inside. He steps into a strange new area labeled Spatiales. Suddenly, a massive headache hits him like a freight train. He clutches his tiny head in agony. Wild flashbacks violently crash into his mind, massive explosions and fiery destruction. He sees a blurry memory of a fierce battle and someone desperately calling out to a baby. The vision sharpens, revealing a young man glowing with an intense magical aura. Completely overwhelmed by the sensory overload, the tiny prince drops to the dirt like a rag doll. Just as he hits the ground, a familiar voice calls out to him. It's Pian. The towering paladin swoops in out of nowhere and scoops the little prince up into his arms. Pian goes full panic mode, frantically checking if his son is injured. Anastasia is just baffled, wondering why his dad always magically spawns when he least expects it. Without hesitating, the overprotective knight declares he's rushing him straight to the palace infirmary. Anastasia snaps out of it, quickly lying that he just tripped and doesn't have a single scratch on him. Pian gives him a highly suspicious side-eye but reluctantly buys the excuse. Just then, Yuzu calls out from the garden, desperately looking for the prince. Anastasia waves at her from Pian's massive arms, looking cheerful and totally unbothered. Yuzu nearly jumps out of her skin when she realizes Commander Parcial is standing right there. Anastasia giggles, explaining his papa magically appeared to save him from a fall. Pian awkwardly clears his throat, making up an excuse that he was just passing by on his way to the training grounds and tries to dip. But Yuzu boldly blocks his exit, begging the commander to stay for tea. Anastasia instantly assists, hitting his dad with an absolutely lethal puppy dog eye attack. Pian instantly folds like a cheap lawn chair, leaving Anastasia internally smirking at his easy victory. They sit down at a table completely loaded with top-tier cakes and fruit pastries. Yuzu reveals the imperial palace sent an absolute mountain of sweets because they heard it was the prince's favorite. Instead of being happy, Anastasia starts sweating bullets, instantly assuming his evil Aunt Aquila spiked the frosting with poison. He stares at the cake, completely stressed out that he has to worry about assassination plots at 4 years old. But he quickly rationalizes that his aunt is way too cunning to use such an amateur, obvious trap. Still feeling on edge, he decides to butter up his ultimate meat shield by offering Pian a cup of tea. Yuzu notes that it's Lyssa's tea, literally the only drink the notoriously picky commander actually enjoys. Pian accepts the cup, casually admitting he drinks it all the time. Anastasia knows Lyssa's tea is incredibly rare and expensive, though he personally thinks hot cocoa is way better. He recalls that people call it smile tea because it's supposed to make you instantly happy. He watches his dad take a sip, but the stoic knight's face remains absolutely frozen. Anastasia wonders if his dad even has the facial muscles to smile. Shrugging it off, the little prince goes back to happily munching on a cake pop. As they sit together in the magical garden, a rare sense of peace washes over them. Staring up at his towering dad, Anastasia realizes he always feels 100% safe when Pian is around. Realizing he has the paladin exactly where he wants him, the tiny prince cheerfully announces he has a special wish. Pian is completely caught off guard, a drop of sweat forming as he nervously asks what it is. Knowing he can't just demand Pian become his bodyguard yet, Anastasia asks if he can visit the knight's training grounds instead. He sinisterly plots that if he can't officially hire him, he'll just cling to the guy like a literal parasite. Pian instantly rejects the idea, bluntly stating the training grounds are no place for a little prince. Anastasia pouts, insisting he just wants to meet the knights. He deploys his ultimate puppy dog eye attack, but it completely bounces off Pian's iron will. His defenses are simply too high today. Realizing he needs backup, the prince quietly signals for Yuzu to step in. Yuzu flashes a sneaky wink, totally understanding the assignment. She suddenly acts flustered, claiming she has urgent errands to run and loudly wondering who could possibly watch the prince. She smoothly guilt-trips Pian, reminding him that the boy is terrified of strangers and only feels safe with him. Pian sweats, trying to argue that the training grounds are too far away. But the trap is already sprung, and the stoic commander realizes he's been masterfully cornered by a maid and a toddler. Throwing his tiny arms up, Anastasia cheerfully demands to be carried. Pian just stands there in silence, completely defeated. Yuzu waves goodbye with a victorious smile as the massive Paladin carries the little prince away. They arrive at the Verita's training grounds, where the sound of clashing swords rings through the air. A fierce sparring session is going down between a red-haired woman and a blonde recruit. Watching safely from his dad's arms, Anastasia is amazed by how intense the fight is. Without breaking a sweat, the woman disarms the recruit and drops him to the dirt like a sack of potatoes. She strictly lectures the guy, scolding him for trying to attack when his defenses were completely open. The woman suddenly pauses, noticing Commander Pian standing in the doorway. Anastasia gives a polite little bow, introducing himself. The woman's strict demeanor instantly vanishes as she realizes this is the genius royal kid everyone's been gossiping about. She introduces herself as Shelman Fiert, the deputy commandant, and Anastasia immediately recognizes her as the strongest female knight in the kingdom's history. While she talks, the tiny prince glances over at the defeated recruit on the ground. The poor guy looks completely out of breath. But when the boy looks up, Anastasia is suddenly flashbanged by a sparkly, protagonist-level aura. The little prince's eyes bug out of his head, totally shook by how ridiculously handsome this random recruit is. Suddenly, a squad of burly knights spots Anastasia and rushes over in a total frenzy. They crowd around him, absolutely losing their minds over how small and cute the royal kid is. Shelman instantly shoos them away, yelling at the giant men to back off before they scare the boy. Anastasia casually clings to Pian's neck, explaining that he asked his papa to bring him here. Hearing the most terrifying man in the kingdom called Papa, Shelman completely breaks character and bursts out laughing. She teases her boss about his adorable kid, leaving Anastasia impressed that she isn't terrified of his dad at all. Shelman decides to hand babysitting duties over to the handsome recruit, joking that the little prince is the perfect sparring partner for his current skill level. The recruit nervously sweats, respectfully accepting the deputy commander's orders. Pian sets Anastasia down, officially handing him over for a tour. The recruit blushes incredibly hard, which Anastasia assumes is out of sheer terror from Pian's intimidating presence. The boy awkwardly extends his hand to lead the little prince around. Anastasia takes his gloved hand, suddenly feeling a strange sense of familiarity. Looking at the boy, he realizes he's definitely heard his name before. Blue eyes, light brown curly hair, the name Regent Tigress suddenly clicks in his mind. His eyes widen as he remembers exactly who this guy is from his past lives. Regent Tigress isn't just some random recruit. He's destined to become a legendary beast-taming knight with unmatched speed on the battlefield. In the future, he becomes Pian's absolute best student and a famously charismatic warrior. Anastasia can barely believe this shy kid is the same person. The little prince stares at him in absolute awe, mind blown by the glow-up this kid is destined for. Regent gets flustered under the intense stare, nervously asking why he's looking at him like that. Anastasia quickly hypes him up, cheerfully praising him for being a Verita's apprentice knight at such a young age. Regent humbly looks down, saying the prince is totally overestimating him. Shelman chimes in with a smirk, noting that the kid is just shy but actually has a ton of potential. Anastasia holds his hand tightly, remembering that being in the Verita's squad means you have access to holy magic. Holy magic is incredibly rare. It isn't passed down through bloodlines but randomly awakens in unpredictable individuals. Whether they are a lowly priest or a noble knight, anyone who awakens it is instantly respected as a chosen one by the gods. Regent suddenly stops walking, casually dropping the bomb that he'll never be able to use holy magic. Anastasia's jaw practically hits the floor as he gasps in pure shock. Regent looks totally defeated, sighing that he's useless and will probably end up leaving the Verita's squad. The tiny prince starts internally short-circuiting. He knows his memories are flawless, so he wonders how this kid even got recruited if he can't use the squad's signature power. Regent explains that the commanding officer personally brought him in. Anastasia instantly realizes he's talking about his dad, Pian. Staring into the distance, Regent recalls the terrifying day his life changed forever. A flashback reveals his peaceful village getting absolutely wrecked by giant, fiery dragon monsters. With his father killed and his mother crushed under flaming debris, a young Regent thought he was totally a goner. But just when all hope was lost, Pian steps out of the smoke like a literal raid boss. Regent describes the commander appearing like a blood-soaked, sword-wielding miracle. Without holding back, Pian moves like lightning and absolutely slices the monsters into ribbons. He completely annihilates the massive beasts in the blink of an eye. After the carnage, the Paladin stays behind, using his glowing holy magic to heal Regent's dying mother. Out of nowhere, Pian turns to the kid and orders him to join his elite knight squad. Snapping back to the present, Regent admits he assumed Pian saw hidden holy magic inside him, but now he's frustrated because he can't tap into it at all. Anastasia wonders for a split second if his cold-hearted dad just took pity on the orphan, but instantly shakes his head. He knows Pian is way too strict for that. The Paladin only cares about results, which means he 100% saw dormant power in the boy. Regent's eyes light up with a spark of hope. But he quickly gets suspicious, asking how a 4-year-old princess knows such complex psychological stuff. Anastasia sweats bullets, slapping together a fake excuse about reading a lot of books. Changing the subject, the tiny prince grabs the recruit's hand and demands he follow him. He drags the confused teenager away from the training grounds. They arrive at a quiet spot by a massive tree, and Anastasia boldly declares he's going to be his magic trainer. Internally, the prince resolves not to let this future legend give up on himself so easily. Regent asks how they're supposed to train, and Anastasia silently panics, hoping the guy doesn't realize he's totally winging it. When Regent points out that regular magic and holy magic are different, Anastasia confidently bluffs that the core principles are exactly the same. Putting on his best wise master act, the little prince lectures that true power stays locked away if your soul lacks confidence. Regent looks completely mind-blown by the toddler's wisdom, leaving Anastasia to nervously repeat his "I just read a lot" excuse. Deep down, Anastasia remembers how his own fear held him back in his second life, and he refuses to let Regent make the same mistake. He hypes the recruit up, telling him to stop doubting himself and just try blasting some holy magic onto a nearby plant. Regent's sweat drops at how aggressively the princess talks about the commander, but he agrees to give it a shot. He claps his hands together, focusing all his energy. But nothing happens. A single pathetic little leaf wiggles, leaving Anastasia completely underwhelmed. Refusing to break character, the prince points at the sad little weed and loudly claims it looks much fresher than before. Regent leans in, squinting at the dirt, totally unconvinced. Anastasia furiously insists it worked, trying his hardest to force a placebo effect on the poor guy. Suddenly, Regent bursts into warm, genuine laughter. He gently pats Anastasia's head, telling the little prince he doesn't have to try so hard. Flashing a pure, wholesome smile, Regent thanks him for giving him his confidence back. Anastasia is stunned. In all his harsh past lives, this is the first time anyone has ever sincerely thanked him. Suddenly, Regent realizes he just casually pet a royal family member and drops to the ground in absolute panic, explaining it's just a habit he has with his little brother. Anastasia isn't mad at all. Instead, he feels a little warm inside, wishing he actually had a kind big brother like Regent. Catching the vibe, Regent nervously offers to act like his big brother if the princess is okay with a lowly commoner like him. Anastasia's eyes sparkle as he eagerly asks if he can just call him Regent from now on. Regent happily agrees, but their sweet bonding moment is completely ruined when a loud voice yells out from behind them. A red-haired recruit struts over with a cocky smirk, mocking Regent for giving up on his training to play babysitter. Regent immediately scolds the guy, warning him that the kid is actually the royal princess. The red-haired recruit blinks, looking a little closer. Realizing his mistake, he drops the attitude and formally bows, introducing himself as Raeliana, the eldest son of a duke. But the damage is already done. Anastasia shoots him an absolute death glare, instantly irritated by the noble's snobby, backhanded greeting. Anastasia realizes Ark is deliberately avoiding calling him a prince. He spots the crest on the noble's uniform, identifying him as a knight in training for Danitas. Danitas is the royal family's elite First Knight Order, the absolute rivals to Veritas. They specialize in combining magic with sword aura. And because of that, Danitas knights are known for having massive, inflated egos. Ark condescendingly looks down at the toddler, asking what a royal is doing playing in the dirt. Unfazed, Anastasia sassily replies he can go anywhere he wants in the palace, adding that he came to see the amazing knights who protect their kingdom. Ark smirks and insults Regent, saying a serious knight should serve the prince and calling the rookie a total shame to their order. Regent looks hurt as Ark claims Commander Pian made a huge mistake recruiting him. That's the last straw. Regent snaps, gripping his practice sword and warning Ark to stop insulting their commander. But Ark just laughs, completely mocking the rookie for being a lowly civilian. Anastasia gasps. Even with the strict class system, Knights of the Holy Order are supposed to treat each other with respect. Ark glares with glowing blue eyes, spitting out that Commander Pian also came from a peasant family, which is the only reason trash like Regent gets a free pass. Anastasia's brain short-circuits. Wait, his terrifying legendary dad is a commoner. Meanwhile, Regin is physically shaking with rage, looking like he's about to explode. He glares at the noble, demanding an immediate apology for disrespecting their leader. Ark just grins like a menace, taunting the rookie and daring him to attack using his non-existent divine power. Regin clenches his jaw and starts drawing his blade. Anastasia instantly panics, picturing a Chibai scenario where Regin attacks first, gets absolutely wrecked by the noble and takes all the blame. If they get caught fighting, Regin's future will be completely ruined. Knowing he has to stop this, the tiny prince slams his hands onto the ground. A magical tremor erupts, blasting a glowing magic circle right between the two boys. Ark's cocky smirk vanishes as he stares at the sudden spell. A loud explosion sends Ark flying onto his butt. Regin stammers, utterly shocked that the 4-year-old just cast a spell. Anastasia plays it cool, innocently claiming he just learned the theory from a book, while internally flexing his own genius. Covered in dirt, Ark screams at the little prince, demanding to know why he just randomly attacked him. Anastasia drops the cute act and glares right into Ark's soul, bluntly stating he's just taking out the trash. Ark points at himself in disbelief, but the prince coldly reminds him that he completely failed to uphold a knight's honor. He scolds the noble, saying that respecting comrades is rule number 1, and Ark just trampled all over it. Staring the teenager down, Anastasia declares that Ark isn't even qualified to hold a sword. Absolutely humiliated by a toddler, Ark scrambles to his feet and runs away like a coward. After the dust settles, Regin gently places a hand on Anastasia's shoulder. His eyes are sparkling with pure fanboy energy as he praises the prince for being incredibly cool and majestic. But Anastasia immediately turns around and scolds the rookie for almost drawing his sword in anger. Regin nervously chuckles and apologizes. Still bewildered, Regin asks how old the prince really is, since he speaks like a grown adult. Anastasia sweats and quickly recycles his "I just read a lot" excuse. Meanwhile, over at Duke Aliner's massive estate, Ark is slouched in a chair, completely battered and questioning his entire existence. He's having a total mental breakdown, unable to process how he just got lectured and outmagicked by a literal 4-year-old. He recalls the wild rumors about the prince using advanced elemental magic at the prayer ceremony and realizes they were 100% true. Compared to that kid's insane talent, Ark feels totally pathetic. Suddenly, a maid calls out to him. She announces that his father, the Duke, is looking for him. Ark nervously walks up to the grand double doors. He steps inside, sporting bandages on his face from his embarrassing encounter. Duke Aliner, the formidable vice-captain of Danitas, beckons his son closer. The Duke spots the bandages and sharply asks what happened to his face. Ark violently shakes his head. He'd rather take this secret to the grave than admit he got folded by a toddler, so he lies and blames it on harsh training. The Duke buys the excuse and immediately asks about his real training progress. Specifically, he wants to know if Ark has mastered the Flamma Gladius. It's the ultimate magical sword technique that earned their family the legendary title Knight of Flame. Ark nervously sweats, admitting that controlling the fire element is incredibly difficult and he hasn't made much progress. The Duke instantly blows a fuse, screaming at his son to hurry up and stop being so pathetic. He seethes with anger, complaining that because of Commander Pian's influence, commoners and illegitimate children are gaining way too much power. Glaring at his son, the Duke reminds him that Pian became an official knight at just 10 years old, demanding Ark step up and do the exact same thing. Ark completely spirals, furious that a 4-year-old showed him up, thinking his noble bloodline should have been the genius one. Back in their grand estate, he bows submissively to his disappointed father, promising to try harder. Later that night, Anastasia is wide awake in bed, clutching a teddy bear and reflecting on the day's wild events. He realizes his sneaky vibration spell was a massive success. If he cranks up the power, he could literally cause a mini earthquake to put that snobby noble in his place. He giggles like a tiny supervillain, feeling incredibly accomplished for a toddler. Wanting to level up his magic even faster, he concludes the crowded palace is useless and decides the knight's training dojo is the ultimate grind spot. Plus, hanging at the dojo means he gets to cling to his overpowered dad while practicing. Talk about hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. Then it suddenly clicks, Ark Aliner. He remembers exactly why that name sounds so familiar. He recalls the palace maids gossiping in his past life. They were whispering about Duke Aliner's eldest son, who was also Princess Stella's fiancé, tragically dying during a monster hunt. Anastasia realizes that his harsh words to Ark earlier were actually spot on. The guy was totally unqualified and doomed to fall off a cliff. The next morning, Anastasia begs Pian to take him back to the dojo. But the stoic Paladin flat out refuses for the 4th time. The tiny prince relentlessly pleads for just one more trip. By the 10th rejection, Anastasia realizes standard begging isn't going to cut it. He hits his dad with the ultimate weapon, weaponized tears. He sniffles that Regin promised to make him a kite, completely guilt-tripping the Paladin. Pian instantly freezes, his iron defenses completely crumbling. Watching from the garden, Regin and Yuzu sweat drop, amazed at how the terrifying commander always caves to the little prince. Pian carries Anastasia, awkwardly admitting he's never flown a kite before. Anastasia smiles, glad his dad is finally acting like a real human. Yuzu notes that the Paladin looks so much softer these days. She hugs the little prince, genuinely hoping he gets to stay this happy forever. Regin finally shows up, proudly presenting an absolutely sick dragon kite he built from scratch. Anastasia gasps, praising the rookie's insane crafting skills. But internally, he totally writes the toy off, knowing he just used it as an excuse to infiltrate the dojo. Soon, Regin is chasing Anastasia across an open field, frantically begging the sprinting toddler not to trip. But Anastasia is having the time of his life, pointing at the kite soaring through the clouds. Regin watches in awe as it looks like a real dragon in the sky. Anastasia silently admits that despite his adult mind, having a kid's body makes playing around way too fun. Seeing the kite reminds him of a rumor that Pian's divine form is a literal dragon. He asks Regin if he's ever seen it, but Regin says it only appears during intense warfare. Anastasia wonders if he could just ask his dad to transform for him. Regin visibly shakes, asking if the prince is ever actually scared of the terrifying commander. Anastasia confidently smiles, declaring he's not afraid anymore. After all, Pian literally folds to his every demand. It's only a matter of time before the Paladin is wrapped completely around his little finger. Regin suddenly panics, realizing they wandered too far from the dojo and Pian is going to murder them. He begs the prince to hurry back, trembling at the thought of the commander's wrath. But on their way back, they hear aggressive grunting from the nearby woods. They peek through the trees and spot Ark looking completely miserable. Anastasia stares at him, remembering this guy is fated to die in exactly 3 years. Honestly, he couldn't care less. Ark is engaged to his bratty Aunt Stella, making him an eventual enemy anyway. Plus, rewriting destiny sounds like way too much work. Ark curses at his sword in frustration. Anastasia decides he's just going to mind his own business and walk away. But as Regin tries to guide him out of there, Ark continues having a total meltdown, crying that he can't get his aura to ignite. His sword sparks weakly, completely failing to channel the fire element. The noble drops to his knees in despair, stressed that he can't master his family's ultimate technique in a single day. Suddenly, he snaps his head up. Anastasia is standing right there, bluntly calling his training method completely stupid and questioning if he even understands elemental magic. Ark's ego flares up instantly, yelling that he understands the magic perfectly and accusing the toddler of looking down on him. Regin swoops in to drag the prince to safety. But Anastasia internally roasts Ark, knowing that if he actually understood elemental magic, he wouldn't die from falling into the water 3 years from now. Rolling his eyes, the tiny prince sighs and offers to tutor the struggling noble. He mentally reasons that leaving a guy to die when he could easily fix his flawed technique would just make him feel guilty. Might as well flex his massive brain and help the pathetic teenager out. Anastasia notes that Danita's knights focus way too much on aura and neglect magic, offering to properly coach the struggling noble. Ark immediately snaps, highly offended that a literal toddler is trying to teach him. Anastasia scoffs at the typical noble arrogance, telling Regin they should just leave the guy to fail. Ark stubbornly glares, declaring he can figure it out himself. But Anastasia casually drops a nuke, reminding the teen that if he fails today, his younger brother will permanently steal his position as heir. Fired up by the threat, Ark channels his energy and attempts the Flamma Gladius technique once again. Suddenly, a massive wave of fire successfully erupts from his blade. Ark is absolutely ecstatic, laughing in disbelief that he finally pulled it off. He stares at the blazing sword, his eyes wide with triumph. He's already picturing the king officially knighting him in a grand ceremony. But reality hits him like a truck. The flames suddenly spiral completely out of control. Regin and Anastasia watch in horror as the fire violently surges. Ark screams in agony, totally unable to rein in the blazing magic. Regin panics, yelling that he needs to go grab Commander Pian right now. But Anastasia realizes they don't have time. If they wait for backup, Ark is going to literally burn to crisp. Ark cries out, desperately trying to drop the sword. But the magical backlash has his hands completely glued to the searing hilt. Refusing to let the guy become human barbecue, Anastasia steps up and summons a high-level water spell. Since it's advanced magic running wild, it won't just turn off. He has to forcibly destroy it with divine power. Seeing the tiny prince approach, Ark cries out, begging him to get out of the way. Even while burning, he warns that it's way too dangerous and tells the kid to run. Suddenly, a blinding pillar of light swallows the entire area. Anastasia braces for impact, internally wondering if he just got vaporized into his 11th life. But out of nowhere, Regin steps right in between them. The rookie unleashes a massive shockwave of energy to protect the little prince. With a powerful swing, Regin completely shatters the out-of-control magic. Anastasia's eyes sparkle as he realizes what just happened. Regin didn't use holy magic, he used spirit power. Regin is just as shocked, staring at his glowing sword like he doesn't even know his own strength. Anastasia smirks, realizing this is exactly why Pian recruited the kid. He's a literal prodigy. But the celebration is cut short when they notice Ark's severely burned hands. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echo through the woods. Anastasia freezes, looking like he just saw a ghost. Commander Pian and Duke Aliner march onto the scene, looking absolutely furious. Pian glares down with the aura of a literal demon, demanding to know what the heck just happened. Ark and Regin practically jump out of their skin, absolutely terrified. Without a word, Pian drops to one knee and uses his holy magic to heal Ark's mangled hands. Ark just stares blankly, looking like his soul has permanently left his body. Pian stands up and coldly recites military law. Apprentices are strictly forbidden from using advanced magic. Tears stream down Ark's face as the heavy reality of his colossal screw-up sets in. Without an ounce of pity, Pian declares he's permanently expelling Ark from the Royal Knights. The woods fall dead silent. Regin and Anastasia are completely stunned by the ruthless punishment. Anastasia tries to speak up, thinking his dad is acting a little too hastily. But Duke Aliner suddenly steps forward, coldly questioning if the Verita's commander even has the authority to expel a Danita's member. The Duke glares at Pian, dropping a heavy, intimidating aura. Pian doesn't flinch for a single second, staring right back at the rival commander. Duke Aliner's eyes narrow as he calculates his next manipulative move. Anastasia sweats bullets, feeling the insane tension between the two top-tier knights. The Duke drops down to his son's level and asks why he used that dangerous technique in front of the princess. He smoothly shifts the blame, asking if the princess ordered him to show off the magic. Anastasia's face drops in pure, unadulterated shock, realizing this slimy noble is trying to frame a 4-year-old for his son's massive failure. Asha panics internally, wondering if these adults are about to pin the blame entirely on her. Duke Aliner yells at Pian, claiming Ark isn't allowed to use that forbidden technique even if the princess commanded it. The Duke tells Pian to let the boy off the hook, but Pian coldly states the princess didn't give any such order. A tearful Ark kneels in the dirt, admitting it was his own recklessness and that Asha actually tried to save him. Asha stares in total disbelief as Ark takes the full blame. Pian glares down at the boy, silently calling him an idiot. Asha totally freaks out in her mind, wondering why this future antagonist is suddenly acting so noble. She knows Ark is fated to die in battle 3 years from now, so getting kicked out of the Knights wouldn't actually be the worst thing for him. But seeing him cry still pulls at her. Without hesitation, Pian officially declares that Ark's name will be removed from the order. Before he can finish the sentence, Asha screams out that Ark lied and that she really did order him to show her the flame sword. The entire group is absolutely stunned, with Duke Aliner shouting that lying is bad. Staring nervously at her little shoes, Asha doubles down, begging them not to expel Ark since he was just following royal orders. Smirking like a corrupt snake, Duke Aliner tells Pian to let it go this once since the princess confessed. Asha awkwardly looks away, too terrified to even glance at her father's face. Pian coldly tells her to head back to her room, assuming she just panicked. Asha shrinks back, realizing his voice is 10 times colder than usual. She definitely messed up. Later, Asha lays sprawled on her carpet like a starfish, devastated that Pian officially banned her from the dojo. She bursts into comedic tears, realizing her grand plan to win over her dad has completely crashed and burned. Remembering Pian's terrifyingly dark aura from earlier, she decides it's best to lay low and avoid him for now. Suddenly, her maid calls out that she has visitors. Asha sits up, confused about who would be visiting a toddler. The doors open to reveal Regin and Ark, with Ark clutching a massive bouquet of red roses. Asha is shocked to see the 2 knight trainees standing awkwardly in her room. Without warning, Ark steps up with intense determination. He drops to one knee and aggressively shoves the giant bouquet right into Asha's face. Regin immediately scolds him for shoving flowers at a princess like an absolute clown. Asha just smiles softly from behind the roses, noticing the 2 rival boys have actually gotten a lot closer. Ark looks at her with total sincerity, explaining that his father would literally end him if he got kicked out of the Knights. Asha mentally notes how messed up his family is, while Ark admits he has no idea how to repay her for saving his life. She never really thought about playing the hero, she's just trying to survive her own crazy life. But since he's offering to return the favor, Asha peeks over the roses and boldly tells them to swear allegiance to her. Ark is caught completely off guard. He reminds her that royal knights can only swear loyalty to the emperor, but Asha promises to keep it a secret. She casually adds that they don't have to if they don't want to. But Ark immediately kneels back down, swearing to serve only her for the rest of his life. Not wanting to be outdone, Regin panics and yells that if Ark is doing it, he's in too. Even though he's a holy knight who should only swear to God, Regin rationalizes that a princess is basically close enough. Asha beams with excitement, thrilled that she just secured two powerful future bodyguards. Using a single red rose from the bouquet, she officially knights them. She taps them on the shoulder, demanding they protect her even if it costs them their lives. Both boys fiercely agree, looking totally fired up. Asha giggles internally, thinking they look more like two loyal golden retrievers than actual knights. Suddenly, Yuzu interrupts the touching moment. She bows apologetically and announces that the emperor has summoned the princess. Meanwhile, back at the Grand Palace, Dukaliner informs Pian that his Danita's order is being sent away, leaving the next major mission entirely to Veritas. Pian stays completely stoic, quietly accepting the new orders. Aliner hits him with a sly, taunting smirk, noting that the great commander seems to be in a pretty terrible mood lately. Dukaliner pokes the bear, asking Pian if his foul mood lately is because of Princess Asha. Pian shoots him an icy glare, pretending he has absolutely no idea what the Duke is talking about. But Aliner keeps pushing, taunting him about the recent disaster at the training dojo. Pian completely sees through the nonsense, boldly stating that Aliner forced the young princess to lie to cover up his own son's mess. Aliner just bursts out laughing, acting like Pian is losing his mind. But Pian isn't backing down. He knows Asha has a flawless memory and just threw herself under the bus to save Ark from expulsion. Aliner cackles like a true supervillain, mocking the legendary Paladin for actually caring so much about a kid. Meanwhile, we see Asha happily skipping along. In this ruthless kingdom, a child as vulnerable as her desperately needs a guardian. And since the princess technically doesn't have one, navigating the royal palace alone is incredibly dangerous. Pian fiercely warns Aliner to back off and mind his own business when it comes to the princess. The Duke acts surprised by the heavy pushback, deciding it's best to just make his exit. He casually strolls away, leaving a tense Pian standing guard in the hallway. As he walks away, Aliner chuckles to himself, brushing his hair back. A wicked smirk spreads across his face. He realizes this whole situation just got a lot more interesting, while Pian remains totally unbothered by the door. Cut to the Grand Royal Palace where a massive feast is underway. King Ferdinand tells Asha that the temple's boring meals can't even touch the palace's VIP menu, and her eyes practically sparkle at the spread. Asha eagerly digs into a juicy steak, super relieved that her terrifying royal summons was literally just a lunch date with her grandpa. She marvels at the massive lobster and lavish dishes, stuff she never got to taste in her past miserable lives. But the vibe at the table is heavy. She nervously glances around, wondering if she can actually eat comfortably with these intimidating adults watching her every move. Her evil Aunt Aquila immediately ruins the mood, mocking Asha and claiming her face has already doubled in size since she moved to the temple. Asha gets comically defensive, mentally screaming that her cheeks are just adorably chubby from living her best toddler life. Not backing down, the little princess fires a savage stray back at Aquila, innocently asking if work is stressing her out because she looks incredibly haggard today. The king completely ignores their petty beef and drops some serious news. Dangerous slave hunters who kidnap orphans are still on the loose. A chill runs down Asha's spine as she remembers getting absolutely wrecked by those exact hunters in her fifth life. She refuses to let that happen again. Aquila nervously asks why they haven't been caught yet, fearing they'll breach the capital. The king assures her the Danita's knights are handling it, then completely pivots the conversation back to Asha. He casually asks if it's true she's been hanging around the knight's dojo lately, causing Asha to freeze mid-bite. Sweating bullets and wondering if Pian snitched on her, she stammers out that she just wants to practice magic. Aquila instantly goes on the offensive, screaming at her for bothering the royal knights. But the king swiftly shuts his daughter down, telling her to pipe down because he actually loves Asha's ambition. In a wild twist, he suggests Asha stop practicing alone and get privately tutored by the literal headmaster of the Magic Academy. Aquila practically pops a blood vessel, furious that a toddler is getting such elite treatment. She desperately argues that a royal lady should be learning basic etiquette and reading the Bible instead of casting spells. Asha realizes this is her moment to completely dunk on her aunt, so she calmly closes her eyes. The king nearly chokes on his wine as Asha casually drops that she's already memorized the entire holy book. Aquila stares in pure disgust, refusing to believe it, while Asha smiles like an absolute angel. Trying to expose her, Aquila aggressively demands she recite a hyperspecific verse from page 17. Without missing a beat, Asha starts spitting the exact holy bars while the adults sit there in stunned silence. She finishes the prayer flawlessly, looking like the most innocent saint to ever exist. The king absolutely loses his mind, shouting in triumph, while Aquila looks like she just swallowed a lemon. Grandpa praises Asha, claiming she's already surpassed her late mother and flexes that even top-tier royal mages can't pull off what she just did. Asha blinks in surprise at the mention of her mom's magic skills. The king asks if she knows about the elite Narita's division, and Asha definitely does. She remembers that it's the kingdom's most hardcore magic division, where rank is strictly based on raw power. Her jaw drops as she realizes her mom wasn't just in it, she was literally the #1 ranked mage. While the king brags about her genius genes, Asha is having a total internal meltdown. She puts the pieces together. Her mom was the ultimate magic powerhouse and her dad is the strongest knight. She literally hit the absolute genetic jackpot. But then reality punches her in the gut, and she gets super depressed realizing that despite these god-tier stats, she still got completely clapped like a helpless NPC in her past 9 lives. Later that day, she walks out to her carriage and finds Pian waiting for her. She notices he looks super tired, secretly realizing her scary dad actually missed her. Wrapping up the feast, King Ferdinand warmly tells Asha she can visit the royal palace anytime she wants. Asha smiles, more than happy to keep her distance from her toxic relatives. Outside, Pian effortlessly picks her up to carry her to the carriage. Asha looks up at him, noticing his face looks surprisingly exhausted. She wonders if knight commander duties are burning him out. She remembers the king's words about her needing a proper guardian by her side to survive this snake pit of a palace. Feeling a rush of affection, Asha wraps her tiny arms around Pian in a tight hug. Pian completely short-circuits, genuinely startled by the sudden display of love. After a long, awkward silence, Asha finally asks if he plans on putting her inside the carriage anytime soon. Flustered, Pian quickly apologizes, awkwardly admitting that holding her has just become a habit. Inside the carriage, Asha squints at him suspiciously. Pian hurriedly sits down, trying to regain his usual stoic composure. Asha stares at him with massive eyes, humorously wondering if this terrifying paladin is actually getting soft for her. She quickly brushes the thought away, assuming he's just used to treating her like a fragile porcelain doll. But it gets her thinking about her past 9 lives. If winning his affection was this easy, why was he so painfully indifferent to her before? Deciding it's time to rip the band-aid off, she resolves to ask him the heavy questions to finally get some peace of mind. She takes a deep breath, deciding to completely open up. Calling out to him from her seat, she nervously asks a massive question. She asks if he ever actually talked to her late mother. Pian looks like he just saw a ghost, his red eyes wavering in total shock. After a tense pause, he quietly admits that he did. He explains they spent every day together, fighting side by side to exterminate monsters as an absolute power couple. Asha fidgets with her little hands, pushing her luck with one final question. She asks if he knows how her mother died, causing Pian's gaze to sharpen. She innocently explains that she heard her mom was the greatest wizard in the kingdom, making her death super confusing. Instantly regretting it, Asha sweats bullets, wishing she had just kept her mouth shut. But Pian solemnly answers, revealing that Princess Beatrice was killed by a lethal curse. Asha recognizes the name immediately. It was the work of the Demon Emperor, a legendary curse master. She watches Pian struggle to get the words out, realizing how deeply this trauma still haunts him. He explains that right before she died, Beatrice's magic power became extremely chaotic and unstable. Pian grips his pant leg, his voice dripping with venom as he hints at the person responsible for her state. Catching himself, he quickly apologizes for dumping this dark lore on a toddler. Asha plays it cool, pretending she didn't hear a thing to lighten the heavy atmosphere. But as the carriage rolls on, the puzzle pieces start clicking together in her brilliant mind. Back at the temple, her caretakers worry because the usually energetic princess looks totally lifeless and goes straight to bed. Under the covers, Asha recalls a magic book she read earlier. It stated that a mage's power goes haywire during massive physical trauma. The dark truth hits her like a truck. Giving birth to Asha drained her mother's magic completely, leaving her utterly defenseless against the Emperor's curse. Huge tears drop onto her legs as the guilt sets in. She completely breaks down, realizing Pian had every right to hate her in her past lives, but it still absolutely crushes her because she didn't ask to be born. Crying herself to sleep, she vows to somehow make things right in this life. The next morning, Asha emerges looking like a puffy, exhausted zombie. Raeliana immediately notices her swollen eyes and panics. Going into full attack dog mode, Ark fiercely promises to literally strangle whoever made his princess cry. Asha awkwardly sweats, realizing he'd be picking a fight with the legendary Knight Commander. Ark quickly drops his edgy act, softly explaining that he just wanted to see her before his morning training. Asha is genuinely surprised by how sweet this normally arrogant boy is acting now that he's sworn his loyalty. Taking advantage of the moment, she gives him his very first official mission, escorting her to the palace for magic lessons. Ark practically vibrates with excitement, thrilled to finally act like a real royal knight. But their wholesome moment gets completely hijacked when they bump into Stellar, Ark's actual fiancé. Stellar immediately goes on the offensive, furiously accusing Ark of flirting in front of her. She demands to know why he's acting so soft with this random toddler. Instead of clearing things up, Ark proudly puffs out his chest and boasts that he and the princess have a very special relationship. Stellar's jaw hits the floor in pure shock, while Asha internally screams at this absolute PR disaster. Back at the palace, Stellar complains to Aunt Aquila, feeling totally insecure about Ark's new obsession with the princess. Meanwhile, Asha officially meets Ruslan Rictania, the legendary headmaster of the Royal Magic Academy. She takes a seat, relieved to find out he's just a sweet, harmless-looking old man. Ruslan mentions he already heard from the king about her mastering certain spells at such a young age. He calls her a rare genius, making Asha sweat out of sheer embarrassment since she's technically lived 10 lifetimes to get this good. Before diving into the heavy stuff, Ruslan takes out his pointer to cover the basics. He explains that magic is split into 3 main parts: technique, elemental magic, and raw magic power. Asha listens intensely, determined to learn the most powerful spells so she can finally stop dying. But then Ruslan taps the board, bringing up 2 strictly forbidden categories: mental magic and curses. Asha gasps as a dark memory hits her out of nowhere. Ruslan checks on her, but she quickly brushes it off, pretending she just got sad thinking about her mother's curse. In reality, she's flashing back to her first life, where she was framed for possessing forbidden magic documents and kicked out of the palace to die. Ruslan continues, explaining that using black magic to assassinate a royal is the ultimate barbaric crime. Asha realizes that the kingdom is absolutely terrified of these exact spells falling into the wrong hands. Ruslan assures her that all black magic documents in Santra were destroyed, so she has nothing to worry about. But Asha sits there deep in thought, knowing exactly how dangerous the royal family really is. She realizes that if all the dark magic books were destroyed, then the one that mysteriously showed up in her room during her first life was definitely planted. She clenches her tiny fists, realizing she was used as a helpless scapegoat and completely thrown to the wolves. Looking at Pian's stoic face in her mind, she knows she can't just rely on her dad to survive this nightmare. If he decides he hates her again, he could literally abandon her at any second. She needs a backup plan. Later that day, Ark and Regin stand at attention, asking the princess for their next nightly mission. Asha points her little finger and orders them to take her to the Germination Festival. It's a massive spring festival held right in the capital's square. The streets are completely packed with crowds and merchants from all over the world. Asha's eyes sparkle with eager excitement at the thought of finally going. Ark and Regin, however, look totally stressed out about bringing a royal toddler into that kind of chaos. Ark points out the window, reminding her that the festival is completely outside the safe zone. He strictly tells her they need the king's permission and a full entourage of guards to even step foot out there. But Asha immediately shoots that down, whining that going with a bunch of stuffy guards ruins the fun. In her past lives, she was always trapped in the house while her awful adoptive brother got to go out and live his best life. Speaking of her abusive brother, Ark proudly mentions that the madman is currently rotting in a prison cell. Asha ignores him, admitting she's just desperate to finally see the outside world for herself. But internally, she reveals her true motive. She needs to hit the foreign merchant area to get something specific before the festival ends. Regin nervously rubs his chin, asking if it's really okay to just smuggle a princess out without telling anyone. Asha leans in like a tiny criminal mastermind, telling them to listen closely. She explains that her usual caretakers are out on a mission, leaving Ark and Regin completely in charge of her. Her master plan: pretend to play in the backyard, then quietly slip into Ark's carriage and dip. Both boys stare at her with highly doubtful looks, terrified of committing literal treason by kidnapping the princess. Asha crosses her arms, boldly claiming that if they get caught, they can just play dumb and drive around the palace instead. Cut to them actually pulling it off, riding out of the shrine's gates without a single hitch. Asha smiles wickedly as she hugs Regin, celebrating how shockingly easy it was to sneak past the guards. Since they're already out, Ark gives in and tells her they might as well have fun while it lasts. Asha immediately tries to steer them toward the merchant area, but something else catches her eye. The square is absolutely popping off with crazy acrobats building human pyramids. She watches in awe as a seal balances a ball and magicians pull doves out of thin air. To give her a better view, Regin lifts her up onto his shoulders, and Asha completely melts at the magic of the festival. The passing crowd instantly stops to admire how ridiculously adorable she looks sitting up there. Spotting a performer collecting tips, Ark steps up like a true gentleman. He drops a coin into the hat, perfectly blending into the lively festival atmosphere. Ark casually drops a literal gold coin into a street performer's hat, making the poor guy completely panic over the massive tip. Ark awkwardly wonders if he overpaid. Asha rationalizes his ridiculous noble spending, figuring he's just spoiling her like a little sister. Ark awkwardly accepts the title, but suddenly freaks out, realizing Asha's distinct silver hair is basically a neon sign for trouble. He points out that light hair screams royalty, prompting Asha to remember how easy it was to blend in when she dressed down in her past lives. Spotting a nearby clothing shop, she decides it's time for a quick undercover disguise. She steps out in a simple civilian red dress and a cute little bonnet. Both Ark and Regin completely melt, wondering how she manages to look insanely adorable even in commoner clothes. Regin gently takes her tiny hand, telling her she can finally relax and enjoy the festival. The three of them stroll through the streets together, looking like the most wholesome little family. The boys proudly walk by her side, acting like her dedicated personal bodyguards. Regin carefully feeds her some delicious street snacks. They stop by a shop to admire a detailed little dollhouse. Ark even messes around with a goofy fake mustache disguise, making Asha burst out laughing. Walking with ice cream in hand, Asha feels like she's in a dream. The outside world is actually amazing. But suddenly, a realization completely halts her tracks. She forgot her actual mission. She aggressively chomps her ice cream, remembering she needs to hit the foreign trade area immediately. Pointing toward a sketchy alleyway, she commands her two knights to follow her. Ark immediately protests, claiming the foreign merchant zone is totally gross and not fit for a princess. The vibe instantly shifts as they enter. The area is shady, filled with pipe-smoking strangers, and Asha feels a shiver run down her spine. But she has to do this. In exactly 3 years, a devastating plague will sweep the continent, completely ignoring both magic and medicine. The only known cure is the grass of life, an extremely rare herb found only in desert nations. To make matters worse, those nations are either strict rivals or completely banned from trading with Santra. In her past lives, the kingdom barely scraped up enough herbs to study, leading to a massive, tragic death toll. Back in the present, Asha prays she gets lucky enough to find a smuggler holding the plant, while Ark begs her to return to the safe square. Suddenly, she spots a suspicious plant stall and makes a mad dash for it. The boys follow her inside, with Ark whining that they could just buy normal flowers back at the festival. Asha ignores him, scanning the shop, but the plants here are absolute nightmare fuel, featuring literal eyeballs and creepy vines. She frantically looks around, sweating because she doesn't even know the foreign name for the herb. Doubt starts creeping in. If she fails today, she'll have to wait a whole year to try again. Cursing her terrible luck, she starts to think it's a lost cause. But then her eyes lock onto something under a glass dome. It's a dark blue flower with distinct serrated leaves. She completely loses her mind. It's the exact grass of life from her previous lives. Ark asks what she found, and she happily plays it off, claiming it's just her favorite flower. Suddenly, the shopkeeper steps out from the back. A stunning foreign merchant names her price, 10 gold coins and absolutely no haggling. Ark aggressively protests the insane markup, but the merchant smirks, claiming she already gave a discount just because Asha is cute. Asha is totally mesmerized by the woman's gorgeous foreign style. Ark tries to drag Asha away, calling the lady a total scammer, but Asha refuses to budge. She grabs Ark's shirt and desperately begs him to buy it, promising to pay him back tenfold. Unable to say no to that face, Ark sighs and whips out a fat pouch of gold. They leave the shop with the precious plant, while Asha happily thinks about where to grow it. Clutching the tiny pouch, she knows this single purchase is going to save thousands of lives. But as they walk back, they notice a massive commotion in the main square. Thinking it's just another circus act, they casually stroll up, only to see a towering figure blocking the path. It's Pian, and he looks absolutely furious. Ark, Regin, and Asha freeze like deer in headlights. They are completely and utterly busted. The tension reaches an absolute boiling point as their secret escape comes to an end. The trio stands paralyzed, knowing there is no escaping the commander's wrath. The clueless crowd continues to cheer for their glorious knight commander, completely unaware that the runaway princess is about to get the scolding of a lifetime. Asha absolutely panics, internally screaming as she spots Pian standing right in the middle of the festival square. Pian whips his head around, locking onto them like an eagle spotting its prey. Ark and Regin completely freak out, terrified that he managed to make direct eye contact with them from a mile away. Ark turns to warn the princess they need to run, but realizes she's already completely vanished. Using her tiny toddler speed, Asha is already hiding behind a barrel, sweating bullets because she knows her two knights will get absolutely wrecked if Pian catches them. Pian marches straight up to the boys, intimidatingly asking what they're doing outside the palace. The two boys laugh nervously, lying through their teeth that they just came to enjoy their day off. Pian narrows his eyes, his terrifying aura flaring up as he asks if it's really just the two of them. Ark scrambles for an excuse, claiming he's just acting as a tour guide for Regin. Regin mentally curses Ark for throwing him under the bus, while Ark desperately tries to change the subject. Pian drops his suspicion and explains that since the other knights were sent away, his Veritas order is handling the festival reconnaissance today. He orders the boys to report any suspicious activity immediately, and they quickly salute him like perfect soldiers. The second Pian walks away, Ark practically collapses in relief while Regin tells Asha the coast is clear. Regin suggests they grab Asha's real clothes and sneak back through the alleyways to avoid running into her dad again. He sweetly asks if there's anything else the princess wants, offering to pay for it out of his own pocket. Asha ties the pouch containing the grass of life tightly to her dress, totally satisfied with her life-saving loot. Meanwhile, Ark gets weirdly defensive, loudly bragging that he has plenty of temple money to treat the princess himself. As they bicker, something sad catches Asha's attention. A young, incredibly skinny girl is standing nearby, holding out a single, cheap flower. The poor girl looks completely exhausted and malnourished. Seeing her breaks Asha's heart. Ark and Regin notice her too, realizing the girl probably hasn't eaten a proper meal in weeks. A heavy wave of empathy hits Asha as she remembers her own miserable sixth life, where she stood in the exact same spot selling flowers just to afford a crust of bread. Determined to help, Asha stares at the girl with deep sympathy. She steps forward to buy a flower, but Regin beats her to it. Turning up the charm to max capacity, Regin flashes a dazzling smile and gently offers to buy the entire basket. The girl blushes furiously, completely caught off guard by the handsome knight. Regin reaches out and grabs the handle of her flower basket. But the moment he touches it, the girl's expression drops into pure, unfiltered terror. Without warning, she aggressively slaps his hand away and sprints down the alley. Regin blinks in confusion, asking Asha if he somehow offended her with his face. Suddenly, a loud crash echoes through the street as the girl trips and eats pavement. Her cheap flowers scatter everywhere across the cobblestones. She scrambles to pick them up, shaking in pain. Ark, Regin, and Asha immediately rush over, kneeling down to help her gather the fallen stems. But the girl bursts into tears, screaming at them not to touch her with a look of absolute dread. The boys freeze, totally stunned by her intense reaction. They immediately drop the flowers and back away like they just touched fire. Asha watches the bizarre interaction, extremely confused. But as Regin stares down at the lingering energy on his hand, he realizes something is very wrong. Asha's eyes widen as the horrifying truth clicks in her mind. This isn't just normal fear, this poor girl is currently being controlled by illegal mental magic. The situation is getting seriously dark. Meanwhile, back in the main square, Pian is still on patrol when a voice calls out to him. A female knight approaches, teasing him about how the crowd completely simps over him wherever he walks. Pian tells her to knock it off, but she jokes that he looks way too intense for a simple festival patrol. She casually mentions that this reconnaissance mission is just a boring formality anyway. But Pian's expression darkens as he coldly replies that something feels completely off. The knight is surprised, asking if he actually caught wind of some suspicious movement. Pian admits he hasn't seen anything concrete, but his gut is screaming that something extremely dangerous is lurking nearby. Right on cue, another knight sprints up to them in a full panic, yelling that they have a massive emergency. A breathless knight sprints up to Pian, gasping that Princess Anastasia is officially missing from the temple. Pian's face immediately drops into absolute shock. Meanwhile, in a dark, undisclosed location, a group of shady kidnappers celebrate their massive haul. They realize Ark is loaded with gold and plan to smuggle their captives out to sea tonight. The thugs gloat over hitting the jackpot, one kid with holy power and another with magic. They know the temple will pay top dollar to get their holy knight back. One questions if the little silver-haired toddler has magic too. The other laughs it off, but notes her rare hair alone will sell for an absolute fortune. Suddenly, Asha wakes up in the pitch black, She gasps as she recognizes the voices. It's the exact same hunters who murdered her in her fifth life. She glances over to see Ark and Regin completely knocked out and tied up like sacks of potatoes. She realizes these human traffickers used the festival chaos to snatch them. Luckily, she spots her precious pouch of life-saving seeds right next to her. The thugs totally ignored it, assuming it was trash. Tied up on the floor, Asha curses her historically terrible luck. They are literally about to be shipped off and sold. Nearby, a hunter aggressively tells the skinny girl from earlier to stop crying, sickeningly congratulating her for passing the test. The girl completely breaks down, having fully given up any hope of escaping. The thugs lock the door, ordering someone to keep a close eye on the merchandise. Watching from the floor, Asha realizes the horrific truth. These scumbags forced this poor girl to act as bait to kidnap other kids. Asha lies there, wondering if she's just doomed to repeat another tragic death. But then a massive spark of defiance hits her. She clenches her tiny bound fists, fighting back tears. She refuses to die this time. Unlike her past lives, she's not alone. She has two fiercely loyal knights right beside her. Rolling over like a little caterpillar, she bluntly tells the skinny girl to stop crying because it'll just make her hungry. The girl jolts in pure shock, completely baffled that a toddler is awake and casually giving out survival advice. Asha looks her dead in the eye and boldly declares that they are going to break out of here. She vows right then and there that she will absolutely not lose to fate. Cut back to the capital. Pian stands in the streets, looking completely devastated as he clutches the little bonnet Asha left behind. There is no mistaking it, it's definitely hers. The female knight reports they've scoured 21 different areas but found zero trace of the kids. She deduces that since the bonnet was left at the clothing shop, the kids must have wandered into the main square. She hopefully suggests the kids just got scared and are hiding to avoid a scolding. But Pian shuts that down instantly. His eyes glow with a terrifying, blood-red fury as he states the princess is in mortal danger. Suddenly, Pian hears something faint in the distance, snapping to attention. He begins whispering an intense incantation, gripping his sword. The female knight completely freaks out, realizing what he's about to do. Pian unleashes a massive, blinding wave of holy magic, completely flexing his overpowered paladin aura right in the middle of the street. His subordinate screams at him to stop, warning that unleashing that level of power in the city is absolute madness. Back at the smuggler's hideout, the sun begins to set. Inside, the skinny girl stares at Asha like she just grew a second head. The toddler's ropes are completely gone. Asha casually sits up, rubbing her wrists. She figures showing off her powers is the fastest way to get this girl to trust her. The girl's mind is totally blown, demanding to know how a literal baby can cast high-tier magic. Asha plays her trump card, proudly stating that royal bloodlines awaken their powers insanely early. Dead silence fills the room. The girl gives her the blankest stare ever. Asha furiously defends herself, screaming that she knows it sounds totally absurd. But she doubles down, confidently revealing that she is the secret daughter of the late Princess Beatrice. She explains that since she's royalty, the entire palace guard is currently tearing the capital apart looking for her. If they can just survive a little longer, backup will arrive. The girl is completely spun out, a secret royal baby. This is way above her pay grade. Despite thinking it might be a bluff, the girl admits she can feel Asha's overwhelming aura. Giving in, she asks what the plan is. The girl reveals their location, a disguised liquor store just outside the capital, which is why the knights haven't raided it yet. She instantly crushes Asha's hope of a prison break, warning that dozens of armed guards are right outside the door. Bursting into tears, she breaks down and reveals that every kid who ever tried to escape was murdered, including her own brother. She sobs that weak kids can't possibly beat these monsters. But Asha stands tall, clutching her magical seeds, and fiercely declares that they won't know unless they try. Back in the holding cell, the older girl stares at the unconscious Ark and Regin, knowing the smugglers consider them valuable assets. She thinks about Asha's wild claim of having magic power, wondering if a breakout is actually possible. She looks at the tiny princess in complete disbelief. Asha barely even looks 5 years old, but the girl desperately wants to believe her. Since it's literally a life-or-death situation, she decides to take a massive gamble. She whispers that she trusts her and quickly starts untying Asha's ropes. Free at last, Asha steps up to execute her plan. Without missing a beat, the tiny toddler casts a massive, glowing magic circle right under Ark and Regin. The boys jolt awake, totally confused about where they are. Regin quickly shushes Ark, realizing they've been captured. Ark glares at the older girl, aggressively asking if she's the one who kidnapped them. Asha jumps in to defend her, explaining she was just used as bait and that they need to focus on fighting the guards outside. She looks back at her two loyal knights, asking if they trust her lead. Ark immediately agrees, but nervously tells her to lower her voice before they get busted. Asha then turns to the older girl, asking if she's ready to run. Feeling the little princess's insane charisma, the girl nods with newfound courage. Asha stands tall, looking like an absolute boss, and declares it's time to start the breakout. Meanwhile, outside the cell door, a sudden loud crash echoes from inside the warehouse, startling the smugglers. The guards hear the noise and immediately suspect the kids are acting up. One of the thugs violently throws the door open to check. But the second the door swings, Ark lunges forward and absolutely slashes the guard across the face. The other smuggler watches in pure shock as his buddy hits the floor. Inside, Asha is kneeling on the ground, pouring her mana into a bright pink magic circle. She sets the warehouse on fire. The guards completely panic, screaming to extinguish it before the flames ruin their stolen goods. The head smuggler snaps, realizing the fire is just a distraction. He spots the kids making a mad dash for the exit. Furious, he orders his men to drop the buckets and capture them alive. As the guards close in, Ark steps up to the front line, activating his sword aura. The boss realizes Ark is incredibly dangerous and screams at his men to forget the fire. The kids are worth way more money. A swarm of thugs charges at Ark, trying to overwhelm him. One guard tries a sneak attack, but Regin effortlessly deflects the blade, saving Ark's life just in time. Fired up, Ark swings his sword and unleashes a massive, crackling aura slash. He yells at the thugs, proving they aren't the only ones packing serious power. Regin tells Asha and the girl to run first while they hold off the mob. But Asha is panting heavily. Casting that fire spell completely drained her tiny mana pool and she's struggling to move. The older girl grabs Asha's hand, desperately dragging her away from the chaos. Asha looks around, terrified that her dad isn't going to make it in time. But suddenly, a massive white dragon plummets straight out of the sky. The older girl screams as the beast crashes into the hideout with earth-shattering force. The smugglers freeze, completely dumbfounded by what just dropped in. Asha looks up, her eyes reflecting the majestic creature. The holy dragon spreads its wings, radiating blinding light over the battlefield. With a single shockwave, the beast absolutely wrecks the courtyard, blowing the thugs away like a pile of leaves. Tears stream down Asha's face as she finally feels safe. Through the dust, Pian emerges, looking furiously protective. For the first time in 10 lives, he isn't too late. Asha cries out for him, and Pian immediately drops to his knees, pulling her into a desperate hug. He frantically checks her over, asking if she's hurt anywhere. Asha just nods softly against his shoulder. In her 10th life, she finally got her dad to save her. The surviving smugglers stare in absolute horror, recognizing the legendary Paladin commander. They realize they are completely screwed. The holy dragon unleashes a massive beam of light, absolutely wrecking the courtyard and sending thugs flying like ragdolls. Asha stares in pure awe at her dad's grand entrance, wondering if getting hit by that blast is an instant game over. Pian gently sets Asha down, telling her to stay put while he takes out the trash. Ark and Regin step up, eager to help. But Pian coldly shoots them down, stating he doesn't need any backup. Ark awkwardly laughs it off, realizing they're finally seeing the legendary commander's terrifying true colors. Nearby, one of the smugglers groans, desperately trying to crawl away from the wreckage. Without warning, Pian stomps his heavy boot right on the guy's hand, crushing it. With his red eyes glowing like a true menace, Pian intensely demands to know who their boss is. The smuggler smirks through the pain, taunting that the mastermind is someone way out of his league. Before the thug can even finish, Pian violently twists his foot, making the guy scream in pure agony. Leaning heavily on his massive sword, Pian chillingly asks him one more time. The thug spits blood and talks mad smack, cursing Pian as a temple slave who should stick to licking noble boots. Regin and the older girl completely freak out, terrified that this random grunt just insulted the deadliest man in the kingdom. Unfazed, Pian aggressively grabs the thug by the collar and hoists him up. He coldly whispers that divine power is an incredibly precious thing. And with a single burst of holy magic, he literally blasts the guy into the shadow realm. Pian walks away from the body, his hands dripping with fresh blood. Seeing this, Asha breaks away from the group and sprints toward him, desperately calling out for her dad. Pian flinches, looking completely caught off guard by her running to him. He drops to his knees and furiously scolds her, screaming that her little stunt turned the entire capital upside down and reminding her she doesn't have multiple lives to waste. Asha stands there completely stunned by his intense outburst, but then tears well up in her eyes as she realizes he's only yelling because he was genuinely terrified of losing her. She cries silently, ironically thinking about his harsh words. She mentally screams that she does actually have multiple lives, calling him a bastard for making her cry. Pian immediately sweats, thinking he went way too far. He completely softens up, dropping his sword and apologizing, explaining he didn't mean to yell at her. Asha ignores the apology, grabbing his blood-soaked hand and crying that he's hurt. Pian tries to brush it off, but Asha furiously demands that he use his divine power to heal the cuts. She cries that she never wants her dad to get hurt because of her again. Pian stares down at her, absolutely speechless. Suddenly, a soft, glowing light radiates from Asha's tiny hands as she holds his. The blood and gashes on Pian's skin instantly vanish, leaving his hand completely healed. Pian looks at her in pure shock, realizing his little princess just used divine power. He points it out, completely bewildered by what he just witnessed. Asha is just as confused, staring blankly as she realizes she accidentally manifested holy energy. This is a massive deal because in this world, magical mana and divine prana are polar opposites. Having both is literally impossible. Pian frantically asks if she feels any pain or weird side effects in her body from the clash of energies. Asha realizes she was trembling from mana exhaustion earlier, but now she feels totally fine and completely energized. Pian immediately scoops her up, looking incredibly stressed by this impossible revelation. He holds her tight, his face filled with urgent protective concern. Meanwhile, a royal knight walks in, reporting that the Santra army is currently locking down the square and advising Pian to lay low. In another part of the capital, the sketchy foreign merchant from earlier is casually checking on her rare plants. A spy reports that none of the nobles know the specific location of the kidnapped children. The merchant's eyes widen as she hears the illegitimate princess was secretly among them. Her spy mentions that the princess is the spitting image of the late Princess Beatrice. The merchant connects the dots, realizing Beatrice's kid would definitely have silver hair and emerald eyes. She suddenly remembers the oddly rich little girl who bought her dark blue flower earlier today. She laughs it off as crazy nonsense, waving her hand dismissively. But as she brushes her dark hair back, a sharp, serious look crosses her face. Cut to a massive, imposing cathedral as the sun sets over the kingdom. Inside a lonely room, a young, purple-eyed boy sits hugging his knees. He is the only prince of the rival nation, Kalisa. Asha's voiceover notes how in her past lives, she was always sick and completely alone, as an image of her crying as a baby fades into the background. Flashback to Asha's past lives. She remembers lying sick in a cold room, wishing for anyone to just hold her hand. Waking up in the present, she feels a warm, gentle grip on her tiny fingers. She opens her eyes to find Pian slumped over her bed, fast asleep while holding her hand. Asha stares in awe, realizing this is the very first time she's ever seen the stoic commander sleep. Suddenly, Pian jolts awake in a complete panic. He frantically checks on her, intensely asking if she's hurt anywhere. Asha is super confused, wondering why her big scary dad is totally freaking out over a little nap. Just then, Ark, Regent, and her caretakers burst into the room, loudly shouting her name. They cry tears of joy, revealing that the princess has been completely knocked out for 3 whole days. Asha's brain totally short-circuits. 3 days, she tries to piece together the chaotic kidnapping rescue. She remembers Pian mentioning something crazy about her using divine power. Before she can process it, a sudden blinding pain rips through her body. She groans in agony and Pian instantly grabs her hands again. Asha feels like her insides are literally exploding into flames. Pian tells her to hang on as his hands glow with bright, soothing holy energy. The intense burning slowly fades, leaving Asha with tears in her eyes as the pain finally settles. Catching her breath, she begs Pian to explain what the heck is happening to her body. He drops a massive lore bomb. Her newly awakened divine power is violently clashing with her innate magic. He's been using his own holy aura to suppress it. Asha realizes he's been burning his own energy for 3 days straight without eating or sleeping. Pian brushes it off, but Asha panics, knowing he could literally die if he keeps playing human battery. Desperate, she asks if there's a permanent fix to this nightmare. Pian solemnly explains that if she endures brutal training, she could eventually force the 2 opposing powers to merge. Asha's eyes light up with stars. Dual-wielding magic and divine power, she'd be absolutely broken. But the room drops into a dead, awkward silence. Asha gulps, asking if anyone has actually survived this. Regent nervously chuckles, admitting that historically, nobody has ever successfully done it. Asha realizes everyone else exploded. She cries out that she's basically a walking time bomb. Pian's gaze hardens with pure determination. He tells her he absolutely won't let that happen. He swears on his life to protect his little princess. Asha blushes, completely thrown off by her dad suddenly turning into a giant softie. Later, the caretakers warn Pian that King Ferdinand is coming to visit Asha today. Pian strictly forbids it, warning that if the king finds out about her dual powers, he'll lock her in the infamous Tower of Nihilim. The caretakers are clueless, never having heard of such a place. Pian explains it's a top-secret black site for war criminals that completely nullifies all magic and aura. Eavesdropping from the bed, Asha practically jumps out of her skin. Life in a magic-canceling supermax prison. Knowing they need to hide her condition, Pian decides it's time to put on an act. Cut to the throne room where the king looks extremely confused. Pian aggressively hugs Asha, pretending she's deeply traumatized by the kidnapping and terrified of everyone except him. Asha plays along but mentally roasts her dad's incredibly stiff, stone-faced acting skills. Shockingly, the king buys it completely, feeling deeply sympathetic about the kidnapping's aftermath. Pian formally requests a leave of absence to personally nurse the princess back to health. The king agrees, but Duke Alter, the corrupt rival commander, is not having it. The Duke barks that Pian is neglecting his military duties to play babysitter. Pian fiercely bites back, shouting that he's leaving his squad in capable hands so he can protect the traumatized princess. Alter yells treason, but the king aggressively tells him to shut his mouth. The king puts the Duke in his place, asking if he plans to take responsibility if the royal princess suffers a fatal seizure. Utterly defeated, Duke Alter grinds his teeth in silent rage. Later that night, the scene shifts to the dark and quiet Olentia Palace. The ruthless Aunt Aquila meets with a secret guest, annoyed about the late-night summons. Duke Alter steps out of the shadows, smoothly kissing her hand. Flashing a wicked, scheming smirk, he tells her he doesn't need an excuse to secretly visit a beautiful lady. The villains are officially teaming up. Duke Alter and Aunt Aquila are having a tense secret meeting in the palace, plotting their next evil move. Aquila mentions the upcoming Senate meeting, side-eyeing him to see if he's prepared. Alter confidently states they need to rally the corrupt nobles to their side. Aquila sighs in frustration, annoyed that as a royal, she can't even participate in the aristocrats' meeting. But Alter steps closer, claiming there's definitely a loophole for them to get what they want. He suddenly closes the distance between them, completely catching her off guard. He formally proposes a political marriage, but Aquila shuts him down, pointing out he used to be engaged to her late sister, Beatrice. She scoffs, calling the idea of him marrying her little sister absolutely ridiculous. Alter plays it cool, asking if she's unhappy with the offer, but Aquila admits she's just shocked by his audacity. What really annoys her is the massive catch. Marrying him means she'd legally have to adopt little Asha. Alter smirks, insisting this is actually a massive big brain move. He explains that right now, the kid is perfectly protected by the temple and insanely pampered by the king. Trying to assassinate him directly would be a total nightmare. But if Aquila legally adopts him, she can cleanly strip away his royal inheritance rights and isolate him from the temple's safety. Aquila rubs her chin, admitting it's actually a genius plan, though she doubts her father will ever approve. Alter arrogantly flexes his family's massive influence over the Senate, claiming nothing is impossible for him. Aquila stares him down, curious about what's actually fueling his ruthless ambition. Alter simply states he can't sit back and watch an illegitimate child take the throne. Plus, he clearly holds a deeply personal grudge against someone else in the palace. Meanwhile, back at the sunny cathedral under a clear blue sky, Regin flops onto the couch like a rag doll, desperately begging the priestesses for some water. He complains that he's completely wiped out after covering Pian's suppression shift for a measly 3 hours. A glasses-wearing priestess reassures him, explaining that using divine power to suppress opposing magic is inherently exhausting. She points out that the mana and prana inside Asha's little body are basically fighting a violent turf war. Handing Regin some tea, she wonders how Commander Pian managed to suppress the magic for days on end without taking a single break. Regin sips his drink, amazed that the commander pulls it off with nerves of absolute steel just out of love for the prince. He offhandedly jokes that Pian and Asha honestly look like a real father and daughter. The priestess instantly panics, shushing him before anyone hears that highly forbidden rumor. Still, she feels awful that an absolute angel like Asha has to endure such a cursed fate. Cut to the training room, where Pian kneels down to start Asha's brutal divine power harmonization practice. Asha tilts his head, innocently wondering if he just has to meditate or do some weird handstands. Pian gives him the hard truth. He's going to drop his suppression for 5 seconds at a time to slowly build Asha's endurance. Asha totally panics, realizing this simple method is going to hurt like crazy. Pian looks at the terrified toddler with soft, apologetic eyes. He gently holds Asha's arms, reassuring the boy that he can survive this because he's just as brave as his late mother. With tears welling up, Pian desperately begs his secret son to believe in him. Asha is completely thrown off by how intensely affectionate and reliable his papa is suddenly acting. Still deciding to put his faith in his dad, Asha steals his nerves and nods. Pian looks deeply moved and silently prepares for the painful exercise. He counts to 3, and the very second he lets go of Asha's hands, Asha lets out a blood-curdling scream and instantly passes out from the overwhelming agony. Later, Pian gently tucks the unconscious little prince into his large bed. Staring at his son, Pian's stoic facade completely shatters and tears stream down his face. He falls to his knees by the window, heartbroken that his innocent child has to suffer for a curse he didn't ask for. Overcome with heavy guilt, Pian violently screams, begging to take the punishment and suffer in Asha's place. He tightly grips the bedsheets, deeply regretting the tragic choices that led them here. His thoughts slowly drift back to a beautiful memory of Asha's late mother, Princess Beatrice. He remembers how he selfishly crossed the line of a knight and dared to fall in love with her. A gorgeous flashback shows Beatrice smiling with happy tears in her eyes as he reminisces about the pure joy they shared. The two pull in for a deeply romantic kiss, leaving Pian with the crushing, bittersweet thought, if only there weren't such things as gods to ruin their lives. Pian's tragic flashback continues, as he thinks about how Beatrice's life would have been perfectly fine if she hadn't lost her magic. He deeply regrets getting involved with her, wishing he had just stayed away for her sake. But those dark thoughts instantly melt away the second little Asha runs up with wide eyes, calling him Papa and demanding a hug. Pian scoops the boy up, realizing there is absolutely no way he could ever stop loving this kid. Looking down at the sleeping toddler, Pian lets go of his own selfish guilt. He makes a solemn vow to dedicate his entire existence to protecting Asha, staying fiercely loyal to Beatrice's memory. Kneeling by the bed, he desperately prays to the gods, begging them not to snatch his son away. Fast forward through some brutal endurance training, and amazingly, Asha actually survives the harmonization process. The priestesses, however, are absolutely cooked, passed out on the floor like lifeless ragdolls after all their hard work. Later, Asha excitedly tugs on Pian's sleeve, practically dragging him out of the bathroom. Pian stumbles out, still totally shirtless in his bathrobe, as the toddler urgently points at the air. The stoic commander's jaw practically hits the floor when he sees what Asha just pulled off. The little prince actually managed to summon a divine beast. Asha beams with pride, hyped that the trick he read about in a book actually worked in real life. But Pian just stares in total confusion at the tiny, floating marshmallow-like blob, having no clue what animal it's even supposed to be. Suddenly, the little blob goes poof, vanishing into thin air. Asha instantly bursts into tears, dramatically accusing his dad of murdering his new pet. A fully panicked Pian drops to his knees, frantically explaining that Asha's body just absorbed it and he can summon it again. Asha peeks open one eye with a mischievous grin, totally faking his tears. Spending weeks stuck together has definitely bonded them, letting the little prince comfortably troll his stoic dad. But reality quickly hits when Asha tries to endure the pain without Pian's divine suppression again. He barely makes it 20 minutes before letting out a painful gasp and collapsing. Pian swiftly catches him, wrapping his glowing hand around Asha to stabilize the wild magic. He gently scolds the boy, explaining that summoning that divine beast totally drained his energy and wrecked his endurance time. Right on cue, Regin bursts into the room carrying a strawberry cake, totally interrupting the intense moment. Pian scrambles to close his bathrobe, looking hilariously embarrassed about being caught half-naked. As he covers up, Asha notices the massive, brutal scars covering his father's chest. The prince realizes he actually knows zero lore about the man protecting him. Later, the group sits down for dessert, totally drooling over the sweet treat. The priestesses are mind-blown that a toddler summoned a divine beast, a feat most talented priests can't even pull off. When they ask what kind of majestic animal it was, Asha happily describes it as a small, fluffy, chubby little guy. Connecting the dots, Asha confidently declares it must be a baby dragon since he's Pian's son. Regin sweats nervously but plays along, fully committed to protecting the boy's absolute pureness. He asks Pian to confirm that his massive holy dragon also started out as a tiny furball. But Pian, now fully dressed and buried in paperwork, completely ruins the vibe by bluntly stating his dragon had zero fur and was practically full-grown from day one. The entire room sweat drops, completely defeated by the commander's total lack of humor. Changing the subject, a priestess asks if she should officially report Asha's new divine powers to the temple. Pian's face turns dead serious, warning them that exposing the prince now would put his life in immediate danger. He demands absolute secrecy until Asha can safely endure a full 24 hours without exploding. Holding the boy close, Pian warns that a premature report would get Asha thrown straight into the Tower of Nihilim. He drops some dark lore. Dual power users known as polyops suffer agonizing deaths as their opposing energies rip them apart. The tower is a magic-blocking prison where cursed individuals literally go insane from the internal pressure. If Aunt Aquila gets wind of this weakness, she'll easily lock him up and steal the throne without lifting a finger. Terrified of being locked in a crazy tower, Asha buries his face in Pian's chest. Pian gently pats his back, swearing on his life that he'll never let that happen. Asha looks up, genuinely touched by how drastically his once distant father has softened up. Suddenly, a sharp knock at the door breaks the sweet moment. Recognizing the voice as his loyal knight Ark, Asha instantly leaps out of Pian's arms and bolts for the door. Pian tries to stop him from letting an outsider in, but Asha insists it's totally fine since it's just his buddy. Throwing the door open, the little prince greets Ark with a big smile, conveniently having an important question for him anyway. Duke Alter flashes a creepy smile at the door while Asha internally panics, wondering why this villain is suddenly invading her space. Pian instinctively steps in front of the little princess, blocking Alter and his apprentice Ark from entering the room. Smoothly hiding his malice, Alter claims he has a direct message for the two of them and asks why they've been locked away. He kneels down to Asha's eye level, mockingly asking if it makes her sad that she feels the need to hide from him. Asha clings tightly to Pian's leg, mentally cursing the Duke as a nasty bastard while playing the terrified toddler. Pian glares daggers at the corrupt noble, firmly reminding him that the princess is terrified of outsiders. Alter just smirks, thinking it's hilarious being called an outsider when he's scheming to become the kid's real father. Asha peeks out from behind Pian's pants, completely bewildered by the real father comment. Without missing a beat, Alter whips out a fancy wax-sealed envelope and reveals it's a wedding invitation for him and Princess Aquila. He casually asks if they'll attend, leaving both Pian and Ark standing there in stunned silence. Asha's mind is absolutely blown. This crazy marriage alliance never happened in any of her 9 past lives. She looks up and realizes Pian is just as shaken by this wild plot twist. Alter acts completely unbothered, tapping his swagger stick and complaining that his hand is getting tired from holding the letter out. Pian's eyes glow with rage as he snaps back, asking how Alter can do this when he was formerly engaged to Asha's late mother, Princess Beatrice. Handing over the envelope, Alter coolly asks if Pian thinks he's disrespecting his dead ex-fiancée. But his expression turns completely toxic as he bitterly claims he was the one who got stabbed in the back. Asha suddenly connects the dots. From Alter's perspective, Beatrice betrayed him by secretly having an illegitimate child. Brushing off the heavy tension, Alter announces he's done here and orders Ark to follow him out, but Asha quickly stops them. She desperately looks at her secret knight, Ark, asking if he'll get in trouble and questioning what happened to the flower girl who helped them at the festival. Ark avoids eye contact, nervously sweating as he admits the poor girl has been thrown into prison. Both Pian and Asha are completely dumbfounded, demanding to know why an innocent victim is locked up in the high dungeon. A grim shot shows the flower girl chained up in a dark, cold cell, accused of illegal activities and wielding forbidden mental magic. Asha furiously yells that the girl was literally kidnapped and had zero choice in the matter, demanding her immediate release. Alter coldly brushes off the toddler's rage, stating that simply knowing forbidden magic is an automatic life sentence under their strict laws. But then the manipulative Duke dangles a toxic bait, offering to pull some strings to save the girl only if Asha listens to him. Asha cautiously looks up at the towering noble, asking what he wants in return. Alter puts on a fake, caring smile and drops the absolute nuke once he marries Aquila. He wants to legally adopt Asha as his own child. Suddenly, the scene shifts to a bitter flashback of a younger Alter spotting a blonde rookie wearing the elite Verita's knight uniform. Another noble informs him that the rookie is Pian, the temple's prized new treasure. The gossiping knights reveal that the high priest heavily favors the blonde boy, even blessing him with the name Guardian. Alter immediately realizes this means Pian was a total nobody who didn't even have a name before joining. The dark truth is revealed. Pian used to be a lowly gladiator slave fighting in brutal death matches. The narration highlights how gladiator slaves are the absolute bottom of the barrel, forced to sell their lives for cheap entertainment. Alter watches Pian from afar, disgusted that a kid with such a filthy background looks so incredibly majestic and noble. But when Pian briefly meets his gaze, Alter's fragile ego is instantly triggered by the boy's intense, unyielding red eyes. Feeling wildly disrespected, Alter vows to absolutely destroy this former slave in the upcoming annual night tournament. But fast forward to the end of the match, and the whistle blows on a completely unexpected outcome. Alter is completely wrecked, bleeding in the dirt while Pian stands over him without a single scratch, starting a lifelong losing streak for the corrupt Duke. Humiliated, Alter curses the rookie while coughing up blood. Over the years, Alter watches in pure jealousy as Pian rapidly levels up, becoming a massive threat to his own Danita's order. Pian even outshines him in the war room, flawlessly countering Alter's brute force strategy to blindly attack Gallias. Pian coldly drops a massive brain play, suggesting they target Fioline first to choke out the enemy's winter supply lines before sweeping Gallias. The royal brass instantly sides with Pian's genius tactic, leaving Alter boiling with resentment. The narration notes how Verita's knights used to just be support healers, but Pian single-handedly shifted the continent's balance of power. Alter has spent years seething, frustrated that Pian is a flawless, God-fearing paladin with zero exploitable weaknesses. That is, until this legendary knight met a tiny, illegitimate princess. Back in the present, Alter stares at Pian fiercely shielding Asha, and a wicked grin spreads across his face. He remembers Pian totally losing his cool during a recent training accident, aggressively screaming at Alter's men for endangering the child. And he remembers Pian completely disregarding military authority just to stay by her side. Alter has finally found the invincible paladin's only weakness, little Asha. A flashback shows Pian temporarily giving up his commander duties to his subordinate Shyman. Alter remembers the pure desperation on Pian's face back then when Asha was in danger, fascinated by his raw emotion. He declares he's going to put the little kid right in the palm of his hand and play with her. Throwing his arms wide, Alter vows to keep pushing until he completely wrecks their entire world. Back in the present, Regent and a priestess peek through the door, wondering why the duo looks so absolutely defeated. Asha frantically bites her thumb, stressing out over the plot flying completely off the rails. Aunt Aquila becoming her mom is next-level insane. Meanwhile, Alter confidently assures his allies that he'll easily persuade the princess, completely brushing off any concerns. He knows the king has the final say on royal adoptions, but if he gets all the corrupt nobles to stand together, the king's hands will be completely tied. Asha realizes that if this adoption goes through, she'll be dragged straight back to the palace, basically a total death trap. She looks up at Pian, wondering what's going through his head. The stoic commander looks absolutely shell-shocked. Seeing him so devastated over losing her actually warms Asha's heart a little, proving how much he truly cares. But she quickly snaps out of it, realizing this is no time to go soft. She needs a master plan. She has to figure out how to dodge this adoption and save the innocent flower girl from prison. Remembering her status as the temple's little angel, she realizes she holds way more influence than she thought. Staring at a literal king card in her mind, Asha decides it's time to play her absolute trump card. Cut to the royal palace, where King Ferdinand and Aunt Aquila are having a very tense tea time. The king cuts straight to the chase, asking if she genuinely wants to marry Duke Alter. Aquila smoothly lies, claiming Alter comforted her when Beatrice died and that she can't resist his perfect noble qualities. The king looks totally unconvinced, sitting in silence as she asks why he won't just bless the marriage. He admits it's a massive political win for the Alter family to marry into royalty. But he drops a harsh truth bomb. He knows for a fact that Duke Alter doesn't love her at all. Aquila just smirks, noting that the king didn't care about love when Alter was engaged to her late sister, Beatrice. She mockingly asks if he's only worried because she isn't the royal successor, heavily implying her parents' own marriage was completely loveless. The king instantly gets defensive, aggressively yelling that he genuinely loved their mother. But Aquila calmly sets down her teacup, seeing right through his lies. She coldly states that the only person he ever truly loved was Beatrice. She snaps, furious that he's fiercely protecting an illegitimate brat just because she looks like his favorite daughter. The king angrily claps back, yelling that he's simply following God's will. Aquila stares at the sweet treats on the table, cynically dismissing his religious excuse. She coldly tells her father not to worry because, unlike her mother, she refuses to live a miserable life. A few days later, Asha dresses up in an insanely cute pink gown and knocks on Pian's door. Pian completely panics inside, frantically telling her to wait as he scrambles around. Asha throws the doors wide open, playfully demanding to know what took so long. Pian turns around, looking like an absolute snack in his formal white and purple uniform. Asha is totally starstruck, completely dazzled every time her dad actually dresses up. She casually asks why he's so handsome when he can't even get married, leaving Pian totally flustered. Walking past him, she notices a freshly written letter sitting on his desk. She mentally wonders who this stoic loner could possibly be writing to, but Pian quickly changes the subject. He asks if she's ready, and Asha confidently brags that she can survive a whole 30 minutes without his divine suppression now. Pian looks dead serious, knowing they're heading straight into the lion's den, Alter and Aquila's engagement ceremony. He agrees that they need to scout out the enemy in person. Asha strikes a confident pose, hyped up and ready to go. As they walk the halls, Pian watches her back, rationalizing that getting legally adopted would actually erase her dangerous, illegitimate status. Asha calls out to him, noticing he's completely spacing out. He quickly shakes it off, lying that everything is totally fine while mentally beating himself up. Pian remembers his solemn vow to always love and protect her, feeling like he's failing miserably. He clenches his fist in frustration, feeling absolutely pathetic. Looking at Asha's innocent face, he makes a heartbreaking realization. He can't actually stay by her side forever. Pian silently promises himself that the second she is fully cured, he will completely resign and walk out of her life. Pian makes his grand entrance at the royal engagement party, carrying little Asha down the stairs. The noble ladies instantly start swooning over his charming looks, but they can't help throwing shade. They whisper about what a total waste it is that a guy this gorgeous has the filthy background of a gladiator slave. Meanwhile, Duke Alter's mother, the Marchioness, stands looking completely stiff and unimpressed. The other ladies flock to her, offering fake congratulations on her son's big royal marriage. The Marchioness secretly scoffs, clearly finding this entire situation more exhausting than exciting. Standing safely in Pian's arms, Asha overhears all the toxic whispering. She feels completely insulted on her dad's behalf, angry that these snobs look down on him despite everything he's achieved. Still, she realizes the ladies are just desperately brown-nosing the Alter family to stay relevant. Suddenly, the grand doors fly open, announcing the arrival of King Ferdinand and Princess Aquila. Aquila walks in looking stunning, linking arms with the totally smug Duke Alter. Asha and Pian watch closely from the sidelines. Alter actually shoots Pian a mocking grin from the red carpet, instantly tilting Asha. The boring ceremonial stuff finally wraps up and the nobles get ready to mingle. The musicians start playing, kicking off the kingdom's first post-war banquet. As the couples hit the dance floor, Asha realizes it's the perfect time to make her move. But first, she notices something absolutely hilarious: the intense, thirsty gazes of every woman in the room. They are practically drooling over Pian, who stands out like a literal god among men. With his hair tied back, his absolute beauty is just completely unmatched, no cap. But Pian just awkwardly stares at the floor, completely stressed by the crowd. Asha knows they need to split up if she wants to execute her secret plan. She tugs his sleeve, casually suggesting they should just go home since their duty is technically done. Pian clearly wants to bolt, but a random noble lady suddenly approaches them. Shooting her shot, she boldly asks the stoic commander for a dance. Pian completely freezes like a deer in headlights, while Asha mentally cheers for her unexpected savior. Playing the supportive daughter, she shoves him toward the dance floor, promising to stay right where she is. Pian nervously sweats, practically getting dragged away into the crowd. Asha watches him go with fake tears of joy, silently thanking the brave woman for taking him off her hands. With her overprotective dad finally distracted on the dance floor, Asha stares out into the night, ready to absolutely wreck Duke Alter's massive ego. Across the room, two older nobles are stressing out over Alter's rising power, knowing he'll completely take over the kingdom once Aquila sits on the throne. They desperately want to stop the marriage but feel totally powerless against Alter's influence. The balding guy wonders if the nobles could somehow band together to pressure the king into changing the inheritance. Suddenly, they notice a tiny blur of pink rushing straight toward them. It's Princess Asha, leaving the two men completely baffled as to why she's approaching them alone. Asha's internal monologue reveals a massive lore drop. These guys are from the Raisels family. A few years ago, she overheard maids gossiping that the Raisels are actually Duke Alter's biggest secret rivals. The two families used to be equals, but the Raisels lost their top commanders in the war, leaving them crippled while Alter rose to power. Smirking internally, Asha decides to play the ultimate enemy of my enemy is my friend strategy. But as she gets close, she realizes the middle of a crowded ballroom is a terrible place to hatch a secret plot. The mustache-wearing Marquis Raisels awkwardly looks down at her, asking if she needs something. Asha quickly pivots, switching into full toddler mode with wide, innocent eyes. She points directly at his face and excitedly compliments his epic mustache. His buddy bursts out laughing, teasing the Marquis and suggesting he dance with the little princess. The Marquis drops to one knee, totally confused about why a royal toddler is wandering around without any servants. Putting on the ultimate baby voice, Asha complains that she really needs to use the bathroom. Falling right into her adorable trap, the honorable Marquis sighs and offers to escort her himself. He picks up the tiny princess, telling his friend he'll be right back. Carrying her away, the Marquis internally melts at how cute she is, thinking it's a huge shame she's tied to a former slave. But the second they step away from the crowd, Asha completely drops the cute act. Leaning close, she smoothly whispers his exact title, telling him to skip the bathroom and head straight for the balcony. Marquis Raisels breaks out in a cold sweat, absolutely mind-blown that this 4-year-old just read him like a book before he even introduced himself. Out on the balcony, Marquis Raisels holds Asha in his arms to talk in private. He stares at the toddler, feeling weirdly enchanted by her unsettlingly calm vibe. Asha drops the cute act and asks to make a deal. The Marquis chuckles, assuming she just wants some candy. But Asha completely blindsides him, offering to hand over highly classified intel that will save his struggling family. The Marquis breaks into a cold sweat, totally baffled by what kind of information a 4-year-old could possibly have. She drops a massive bombshell, the exact location of an undiscovered magic stone mine in Santra that doubles a person's power. She knows Duke Alter is fated to monopolize it in 2 years. Asha promises to give the Marquis the exact coordinates if he agrees to protect her from Alter's adoption scheme. The old man gets literal whiplash, frantically asking who put her up to this. Asha plays her ultimate wild card, claiming nobody told her because she can literally prophesy the future. The Marquis is left absolutely speechless. Leaning into her title as the temple's godchild, she claims she constantly dreams of future events. He asks if the high priest knows about her crazy abilities. Asha shakes her head, stating she hasn't told a single soul because it's too dangerous. She tragically explains that if the wrong people find out, they'll either exploit her powers or just assassinate her. The Marquis is absolutely mind-blown by this kid's elite political brain, realizing she's a total genius like her late mother. Gulping nervously, he agrees to help but asks to add one more condition to their bet. Asha raises an eyebrow, wondering what else this guy could possibly want on top of a priceless magic mine. The Marquis points to a portrait of his orphaned grandson, explaining the boy is his only heir. He brags that the kid is super talented and handsome, and then smoothly asks Asha to officially get engaged to him. Asha's jaw practically unhinges. This ruthless old dude is treating her like a literal business transaction. She stares at him like he's totally lost his marbles. But sweating bullets, Asha realizes she desperately needs a political shield against Duke Alter. She figures she'll just run away from the capital before she turns 12 anyway. So she accepts the fake engagement, fully intending to completely ghost them later. Suddenly her chest fiercely throbs, catching her completely off guard. She wonders if her powers are acting up, or if deep down, she actually doesn't want to leave this place and Pian behind. Meanwhile, back at the banquet, King Ferdinand awkwardly toasts to Duke Alter's engagement. Alter plays the perfect gentleman but smoothly brings up a gift he wants from the king. He refuses any material presents, asking only for the king to sign the official royal consent form right then and there. The surrounding nobles gasp as Alter specifically demands the papers to adopt Princess Asha. But before the king can cave to the pressure, Asha marches down the stairs and loudly objects. The entire room goes dead silent as the tiny princess boldly interrupts the adults. She publicly calls out the sketchy adoption, loudly questioning why they specifically want an orphaned royal instead of any other kid. Alter casually laughs off her protests, acting like she's just a silly child talking nonsense. With her distraction complete, Asha tries to sneak away to find Pian. But Alter immediately intercepts her, towering over the little girl with a dark glare. He suddenly snatches her up into a fake, loving hug, making her skin crawl. While smiling for the crowd, he quietly whispers toxic threats, promising her that the adoption is only a matter of time. Suddenly, a pair of hands reaches out from behind and literally yanks the princess right out of the duke's grasp. It's Pian furiously pulling his daughter away from the creepy noble. But as Pian instinctively floods her body with his protective divine power, it violently clashes with her internal magic. Asha lets out a blood-curdling scream, feeling like her chest is going to explode from the overwhelming pressure. The crowd gasps as Pian looks down in absolute horror, bleeding from the sheer strain of suppressing her chaotic energy. Alter's snobby mother immediately scolds Pian, calling him an impolite brute for causing a scene. But despite her agonizing pain, Asha furiously yells right back at the old lady. She roars that Pian risks his life slaughtering monsters, so these spoiled, ungrateful nobles can sleep peacefully in their beds. The king instantly steps in, sternly ordering the Marchioness to apologize to the commander. The crowd starts whispering, completely humiliating the old lady as she realizes the king is fully backing the princess. But Pian coldly shuts it down. Glaring at them, he bluntly states they don't need her fake apology and swiftly carries Asha out of the party. Alter and Aquila watch Pian swiftly carry Asha out of the hall. Aquila smirks, noting that the commander is totally running away. She turns to Alter with a devious glint in her eye, announcing she has some brilliant news. She claims they can now easily get rid of both Pian and the little princess in one clean sweep. Outside under the moonlight, Ashad gently scolds Pian, asking why he didn't just accept the old lady's apology. Pian shakes his head, knowing the Marchioness wasn't sincere anyway. He holds his daughter close, his expression softening as he genuinely thanks her for standing up for him. Asha looks at him with wide, sparkling eyes. She reminds him that he literally stabbed a table for her back at Alter's estate, so of course she's gonna throw hands for her dad. But Pian strictly warns her to stop defending him, worrying that making enemies of the nobles will only put a massive target on her back. Hearing him speak with such deep, fatherly concern hits Asha right in the feels. She looks at the grand palace, a heavy sadness settling in as she realizes that someday she'll have to leave Pian and this place behind. Later, back at the temple, Regin and a priestess immediately notice Pian's clothes are totally stained, asking if he spilled grape wine. Pian quickly excuses himself to take a shower, leaving the little princess in their care. As the priestess crouches down, she spots a dark spot on Asha's pink dress. She totally freaks out, screaming about a blood stain, but Asha instantly panics and covers it up. Using her quick toddler wits, she smoothly lies, claiming it's just some spilled wine from the party to avoid explaining her power collision. The caretakers buy it and quickly plop the princess into a warm bubble bath. While scrubbing her, Regin mutters about Alter, wondering if the Duke is insane since opposite magic forces can't just be transmitted randomly. Soaking in the suds, Asha realizes Alter is an absolute psycho who definitely figured out she possesses two opposing powers. She prays the Marquis hurries up with her secret mission. Regin then awkwardly asks if the rumors are true. Was the legendary Commander Pian really a lowly slave? The priestess snaps back, firmly stating his past doesn't matter because he climbed to the top rank purely through his own monstrous strength. Asha listens quietly, realizing Pian had been telling the truth about his dark backstory all along. Thinking about all the brutal scars covering his body and how the snobby nobles glared at him. A fiery rage burns in her chest, making her incredibly angry and sad that they dared to disrespect him after everything he's survived. When Pian returns from his shower, Regin and the priestess are waiting for him, looking absolutely furious. They angrily confront the commander, demanding to know what he did, since the princess has been locked in her room crying her eyes out for hours. They scold him, guessing he totally botched his apology and made things worse. Inside the bedroom, Asha is dramatically sobbing into her mattress while a priestess tries to comfort her. The priestess asks if she's crying over Duke Alter's engagement but gets no answer. Wiping her fake tears, Asha asks for a minute alone. The priestess nods, telling her to rest and to call immediately if she feels a seizure coming on. Once the door closes, Asha's expression goes deadpan. She mentally kicks herself for foolishly believing Pian actually wanted her around. She coldly concludes he's no different from the rest, just waiting for the day she leaves so he can be free of his burden. A quick flashback reveals why the caretakers were actually screaming at Pian earlier. They found his secret resignation letter. Pian awkwardly rubbed his neck, explaining he didn't mean to submit it until Asha was perfectly cured and safe. The caretakers completely roasted him, calling it a cheap excuse and telling him how crushed the princess would be. They practically forced him to get on his knees and beg for her forgiveness immediately. Back in the present, Pian quietly enters the dark bedroom. Asha sits up, expecting one of the maids. When Pian softly announces it's him, Asha absolutely loses it, screaming at him to get out because she doesn't need a master. Without a second thought, the proud commander drops right to his knees, desperately apologizing and swearing he changed his mind about leaving. Asha glares at him with teary eyes, accusing him of lying just because the sisters told him to apologize. Pian completely panics, loudly insisting that it's not a lie. He rushes to the bed, grabbing her tiny hands as she stubbornly turns away. Asha aggressively thrashes around like a trapped feral kitten, demanding he leave her alone. Pian just pulls her into a tight, warm embrace, his voice cracking as he promises he never meant to abandon her. Asha completely breaks down, crying into his shoulder while weakly calling him a liar. Meanwhile, a sinister scene shift takes us to a private royal meeting. The king stares down Alter, asking if there's a problem. Alter smirks like an absolute villain, sitting back in his chair with total confidence. He locks eyes with the king and boldly demands official royal approval for him and Aquila to legally adopt Princess Anastasia. Duke Alter sits at the royal table, coolly telling the king that a royal adoption is simply too important to ignore. He confidently slaps a sealed envelope onto the desk, revealing he already went behind the king's back to secure the Senate's approval. But King Ferdinand doesn't even flinch, firmly stating that he never signed off on it. Suddenly, Marquis Raeliana steps in. He completely derails the old Viper's plan by suggesting they just ask the princess herself. Alter snaps back, claiming a 5-year-old is way too young to decide, but the Marquis dares him to let her speak if he's so confident. Right on cue, Asha confidently strolls into the massive state meeting, looking absolutely adorable in her pink dress. Alter puts on his best fake smile, gently telling her they were just discussing making her his daughter. Asha stares dead into his eyes and bluntly asks, "What if I don't like it?" Alter starts sweating, trying to sweet-talk his way out of it, but Asha suddenly screams for the commander. She dramatically points her tiny finger right at the Duke, loudly accusing him of locking her innocent friend in prison. Caught totally off guard, Alter tries to save face in front of the nobles, promising to release the slave girl as a favor to the princess. Asha forces him to swear on God Lux's name. The moment he does, he smugly asks if she'll accept the adoption now. Without skipping a beat, Asha coldly rejects him, absolutely shattering his ego. And then she drops a massive nuke, publicly accusing the Duke of trying to assassinate her at the engagement party. She spins a flawless 200 IQ narrative, claiming she screamed at the banquet because Alter secretly attacked her with dark magic. The king instantly stands up, furiously demanding the truth, while Alter completely loses his cool and calls her a little brat. Asha smirks internally, totally hyped that her master plan is working perfectly. The nobles start whispering in total shock, wondering if the princess is actually a polyps, someone cursed with two powers. Trying to defend himself, Alter accidentally digs his own grave, blurting out that he only tested her because he sensed divine power inside her body. The king seizes the moment, loudly faking total disbelief to protect her secret. He looks at Asha like he had absolutely no idea she possessed dual powers. But in reality, the king has known the entire time. A flashback reveals the king and his top priest secretly discussing Asha's insane potential. They realize that if Pian stays by her side, she could literally become the first perfect polyps in history. To ensure the child of God survives, the king officially shifted military duties, allowing Pian to stay off the battlefield. The king's advisor points out how heavily his majesty is relying on an ancient prophecy. But the king trusts the late priestess Sajin's visions entirely. He admits that while humans make mistakes, the sheer number of consecutive miracles surrounding Asha proves the prophecy is 100% real. However, the advisor raises one major concern, the mystery of her illegitimate birth. He suggests using blood magic on the elite knights to hunt down her biological father. The king immediately shuts the idea down. He knows the brutal blood tests would just torture the little princess unnecessarily. Choosing to protect her instead, he officially drops the investigation into her parentage. The advisor warns that if she safely survives the agonizing power harmonization process, the little princess is destined to fulfill the grand prophecy. She will be the one to locate the 3 legendary magic stones. Back in the present, the grand castle looms against the twilight sky. Inside, Duke Alter is absolutely fuming. Since his master plan failed, he coldly tells Aquila to cancel the marriage. He aggressively slams the massive doors behind him. Aquila is livid, screaming at him for treating their royal engagement like a cheap joke. She actually tries to slap him, but Alter catches her wrist, looking completely unhinged and psychotic. Aquila warns him that if they break up now, the king will just ship her off to a foreign country. She demands to know if he's lost his mind over a brat. Realizing she's right, Alter forces himself to cool down, apologizing and telling himself to just endure it. He storms off, leaving their toxic alliance hanging by a literal thread. Aquila stands alone in the massive room, her royal pride completely bruised. She collapses onto the couch, her face twisting into pure malice as she vows that the little brat will die no matter what. She genuinely questions how a half-blood orphan could possibly cause so much chaos. Meanwhile, at the heavily guarded Eudidium prisons, Pian, carrying Asha, rolls up with Ark and Regin to finally bust her friend out of the dungeon. Inside the dungeon, the rescued flower girl shivers, explaining that the dark magic curse on her mind is definitely real. Asha and Regin look totally lost, asking what kind of curse she's talking about. The girl reveals that anyone who spills intel on the trafficking ring's leader is cursed to die a gruesome death on the spot. Asha asks if she's cursed too, but the girl explains she was too low-ranking to ever see the boss's face, only ever hearing his voice from under a black robe. As Regin carries her out, she nervously asks where they're going. Asha warmly promises she's heading to the academy dorms, but first, a quick pit stop. Cut to a massive glow-up, the former slave girl now named Free steps out in a gorgeous purple dress. A priestess finishes snipping away her damaged hair, leaving Free looking totally refreshed and happy. Asha smiles proudly as the temple sisters completely fuss over how adorable the new girl looks. Asha hypes her up and drags a very shy Free out to the courtyard to meet the boys. Ark and Regin turn around and are absolutely stunned by her complete transformation. Ark smoothly compliments her, but Asha notices his reaction is suspiciously calm. Suddenly, Ark completely fumbles and drops his chess piece right onto the floor. He turns bright red, his brain totally short-circuiting over how incredibly cute she looks. Asha smirks, instantly realizing Ark is crushing hard and plotting to playfully troll him later. Sometime later, a royal carriage rolls out, taking the kids to the Grand Academy. Inside, Asha spaces out, thinking about her crazy regression powers and her newly awakened divine abilities. She notes that while rare, some nobles do possess divine power but completely ignore the temple. Royal kids with divine power, however, are fast-tracked straight for the throne. Staring out the window, Asha starts doubting the gods, frustrated by all the kingdom's unfair teachings and corrupt nobles. She literally starts yelling at the sky, demanding the gods give her a cheat code to finally end this endless regression cycle. They finally pull up to the academy, which looks like a literal majestic palace. Free's jaw drops, unable to believe she gets to live in a place this insane. Asha is equally impressed, taking in the grand campus for the very first time. A fancy staff member greets them and guides them down the pristine halls to Free's new room. Asha smiles brightly, glad she used her royal pull to set everything up perfectly for her friend. Overwhelmed with emotion, heavy tears start pouring down Free's face. She drops to her knees and traps Asha in a massive, crushing hug. Free sobs, thanking the little princess from the bottom of her heart for getting her out of jail and giving her a real life. Asha smiles softly, whispering that Free actually saved her right back. Sometime later at the temple, the priestesses playfully measure Asha, asking how tall she wants to grow. Pointing across the courtyard at Pian, Asha confidently declares she wants to be a towering giant so she can wreck anyone in a fight. Regin laughs, reminding her that the commander is basically a 2-meter-tall tank. But Asha stays totally locked in on her massive goal. The priestesses just laugh at her adorable ambition, telling her she'll catch up to him soon enough. Looking at her loyal temple family, Asha feels incredibly lucky to have such warm people in her crazy life. Regin calls out as Pian formally approaches them. Asha looks up at her stoic dad, eagerly asking if it's time to start her brutal magic training. She hypes herself up to be absolutely fierce, ready to embrace Pian's notorious evil reputation. Boom, a 3-year time skip. A 7-year-old Asha tries to ditch school, but Pian shuts it down, pushing her to keep adapting to her powers. Asha proudly announces she's finally conquered her agonizing seizures and can successfully split her mana and prana. Pian draws his practice sword, asking if she's ready to prove it. Asha unleashes a massive, glowing dual-power blast straight at him. Her eyes literally glow as she pushes her absolute limits, firing the intense beam. The attack collides with Pian's guard, setting off a crazy shockwave across the entire courtyard. The priestesses and Regin watch the display in completely stunned silence. Dropping her hands, Asha pants heavily, admitting she's totally tapped out. She pouts, frustrated that her epic ultimate move only lasted a measly 3 seconds. Still, Ark and Regin hype her up for actually blocking a strike from the legendary commander, even though Asha knows Pian held back. A quick flashback shows Ark and Regin kneeling before the king at their official knighting ceremony. But in a massive plot twist, Ark completely shocks the king by boldly asking to swear his eternal oath to Princess Anastasia instead. The nobles start gossiping about Ark's insane oath request, totally shocked that Regin actually played along and messed up the ceremony. But the king, knowing how close the kids are, half-jokingly allows it, leaving everyone else absolutely enthusiastic while Asha almost faints from the shock. Back in the present, a 7-year-old Asha looks up at Pian, playfully demanding praise for her massive improvement. Pian turns his face away, heavily blushing as he mutters a stiff "good job," hiding the fact that he literally almost passed out from her attack. Asha continues to boast, super proud of her progress. But Pian just awkwardly avoids her gaze. Asha sighs, realizing that even after 3 full years together, her stoic dad is still hilariously awkward. Still, she reflects on how special these past few years have been, grateful that Pian and the sisters fiercely protected her from Aunt Aquila's toxic schemes. But her mood darkens as she thinks about the impending future disaster, knowing the monsters are evolving to stop feeling pain. To make matters worse, her rare grass of life seed still hasn't sprouted, and her attempts to secure the royal glass garden totally failed. Realizing the magical research will take over a year anyway, she decides not to rush and hops off the carriage. She waves a bright goodbye to Pian, promising to meet him for dinner after her magic class. Pian nods, watching her head inside the Grand Academy doors. As she turns around, Asha catches a fleeting glimpse of a soft smile on his face. She instantly gets suspicious, knowing a serious guy like him never smiles without a secret reason. Inside the academy, Asha sits down for a private lesson with the head professor and a snooty red-haired noble named Stella. Stella completely loses it, arguing that a 7-year-old is way too young to be enrolled. But the professor calmly shuts her down, explaining that Asha's intermediate magic skills earned her an instant spot in the graduate class. Stella seethes with jealousy, absolutely furious that a toddler is outranking her while she's stuck in high school. Wrapping up the private session, the professor asks if there's any specific spell Asha wants to learn before officially starting. Asha's eyes light up and she instantly requests teleportation magic. She begs to try it just once, knowing it's the ultimate escape tool for a future emergency. The professor agrees, instructing her to try a short 1-meter jump first while visualizing the theory. Hyped to test her skills, Asha cracks her knuckles and gets to work. She focuses her mana, casting a massive, glowing pink magic circle right in front of her face. The spell violently crackles with blinding light, totally shocking the professor. Against all odds, she successfully tears open a glowing blue teleportation portal right in the middle of the room. But the professor quickly warns her that she must lock onto her exact destination coordinates while visualizing the jump. Distracted by Stella's annoying muttering in the background, Asha completely loses focus and slips right into the portal. She gasps in panic as the portal instantly sucks her in. Screaming at the top of her lungs, Asha tumbles through the chaotic void of space and time like a literal ragdoll. She crash lands face first into a pitch-black room, completely disoriented and blaming Stella for messing up her concentration. Sitting up and rubbing her head, she realizes she's crammed into a super tight, dusty space. Suddenly, a voice asks who's there. Asha looks up to see a boy in suspenders staring at her while she sits on a pile of books inside a massive wardrobe. The boy steps closer, revealing pitch-black hair and striking, gem-like purple eyes. Asha feels a weird sense of déjà vu, certain she's seen this kid somewhere before. Realizing she's literally crushing his stuff, she quickly scrambles off the books and awkwardly apologizes. She notices the heavy tomes are all high-level magic books. Relieved that she probably just teleported into a random academy dorm, she casually asks if he's a student here. Without warning, the boy violently slaps his hand over her mouth, looking completely panicked. Asha aggressively thrashes against him, absolutely mind-blown by how insanely strong this random kid is as she shoves him away. He swiftly casts a sound-blocking spell over the room. Asha recognizes the magic and instantly tries to overpower it with her own. But her eyes go wide with pure terror when she realizes her mana is completely blocked. The boy looks down at her, noting that her unique hair and eye colors perfectly match the king's, exposing her royal blood. Asha furiously snaps back, demanding to know who this crazy kid is to speak to a princess without honorifics. The boy coldly introduces himself as Basileo Ardio Perius, the first prince of the rival nation, Calissa. He drops a massive lore bomb, revealing he was dragged here 4 years ago as a political hostage and locked inside this very tower. Asha's blood runs cold as she remembers Pian warning her about this exact place. The Tower of Nihilim, a magic-nullifying prison for dangerous war criminals. She's totally stunned that a literal prince has been rotting in this solitary cell for years. But an even crazier realization hits her. If this tower completely blocks all mana, how on earth did he just cast a spell? Inside the anti-magic tower, Basileo coldly explains his secret. He notes that Santra's mana is divided into 117 different types. The stronger a mage is, the more types they can absorb from nature. But there is one special type of mana that most people can't even feel. He summons a crackling purple aura, revealing that only Calissa royals can use it. Basileo glares at Asha, realizing the kid just exposed his biggest secret. He completely corners the young prince, threatening to kill him on the spot. Basileo justifies it, saying he can easily get away with offing a Santra royal. He assumes the kid must have teleported in using stolen magic books. He stares down at Asha with the menacing eyes of a future demon king. Asha takes a step back, realizing his normal magic is completely jammed. But then it hits him, his divine prana isn't blocked by the tower. He prepares to use it, but knows he only learned defensive moves and can't just fight his way out. Staring at the boy's purple aura, Asha suddenly remembers his past life. He realizes this is the hostage prince who gets caught trying to escape. In Asha's past regression, he saw this exact same purple magic power. Basileo had fiercely battled the Citadel's knights before meeting a brutal end. Asha remembers the bloody prince running toward him right before his death. Knowing this tragic fate, Asha refuses to let history repeat itself. He drops the tension and cheerfully calls the boy Leo, completely throwing him off. Flashing an adorable smile, Asha introduces himself and tells Leo they can be friends. But Leo isn't having it, screaming that he's still going to end him. Ignoring the threat, Asha casually asks if the balcony window is open. Before Leo can react, Asha snatches his wrist. He bolts toward the exit, dragging the older prince like a ragdoll. Leo warns him that they're way too high up and a sound barrier is active. He completely panics, thinking this crazy toddler is about to jump. They burst out onto the high ledge overlooking the greenhouse garden. Asha steps up to the balcony frame, looking back at the terrified prince. He dramatically states that he's destined to die anyway. He tells Leo it's better to jump than let an innocent person get their hands dirty. Leo screams, asking if he's actually scared of death, and Asha shouts that of course he is. Then Asha drops the act and points to a specific barrier-breaking magic book. He proposes a wild deal. If Leo breaks the tower's barrier, Asha will teleport them out. He promises to keep Leo's secret and help him escape back home to Calissa. Leo grits his teeth, refusing to trust a random 7-year-old. But Asha ditches his toddler persona and hits him with a dead serious stare. He steps closer to the edge, showing he's literally betting his life on this alliance. Caught completely off guard, Leo stares into Asha's unwavering eyes. Asha tilts his head cutely, asking if that silence means they have a deal. Suddenly, Asha nervously senses that his overprotective dad might be coming to find him. The story flashes back to 3 years ago, right after Asha started bonding with his father. Little Asha holds up his hand, asking the legendary Paladin for a promise. Pian looks confused as the young prince demands a pinky swear. Asha explains that a pinky has a vessel connecting directly to the heart. He smiles, saying it's a sacred promise meant only for close friends and family. Pian is deeply moved, finally accepting the heartfelt bond between them. Back in the present, Pian wakes up from a nap in Asha's bedroom. He realizes he must have dozed off while watching the prince sleep. 3 uneventful years had passed since that promise, but with Asha now falling into a teleportation portal, the piece is officially over. Pian reflects on how the last 3 years have felt like an absolute dream. He admits that every single moment he spends watching the young princess fills his heart with melting happiness. But beneath that joy, a constant anxiety lingers, reminding him of the dark threats she faced as a baby. He doesn't fully understand the grand will of his god, Lord Rooks. But he desperately wants to believe he has divine permission to stay by Asha's side forever. Remembering the time she cried and begged him not to abandon her, he vows to never let her shed those tears again. He gently uses his holy magic to soothe her to sleep, wishing her pleasant dreams. The next morning, Asha stretches and wakes up with a massive yawn. She groggily mutters about having a nice dream, though she can't quite remember the details. Her maid Rosa warmly greets her, reminding the young royal that today is a huge day. It's officially Asha's first day entering the academy. The maids totally fangirl over her adorable uniform. Suddenly, Ark bursts into the room, dressed in a super sharp student uniform of his own. Asha is completely baffled, wondering why a full-fledged knight is wearing school clothes. Ark explains he practically begged his commander to let him attend as her personal escort. Pian agreed, and even the king gave Ark a 1-year permission pass since Asha is famously bad with strangers. Ark tries to act cool, but Asha completely misreads the room, assuming he just really wanted to study magic. She cutely praises him for being her trusted right-hand man, leaving Ark sweating and secretly feeling guilty about leaving his buddy Region behind. He admits he even got smacked by his dad for this crazy stunt, which Asha thinks is just way too mean. Arriving at the massive academy campus, Asha internally vows to gather as many allies as possible to survive the looming political threats. She steps out of the carriage, staring in awe at the bustling courtyard filled with noble students. The crowd immediately starts buzzing, whispering excitedly about the royal arrival. The gossiping students remind Asha of her dark past lives, but Ark instantly glares daggers at the crowd. He fiercely barks at them, demanding they show proper respect to the first princess. Like a falling wave, the entire courtyard immediately bows down to greet the jewel of Santra. Asha awkwardly sweats, totally unequipped to handle this much flashy attention. They head inside the grand chapel for the morning service, where Asha is required to sit at the very front. As she approaches the pews, she spots Stella, her rival from the previous timeline, sitting nearby. Asha playfully teases Ark, telling him to go sit next to his fiancée, which makes him instantly panic. She drops the toddler act and hits him with a deadpan stare, reminding him that if he's her right arm, he has to sit on her right. Defeated, Ark awkwardly greets Princess Stella and sits down, looking stiff as a board. Stella blushes, clearly thrilled that Ark is actually attending the academy. She smoothly invites him over for tea, but Ark fumbles an excuse about nighttime training, while Asha internally celebrates the distraction. As the service begins, Asha wonders why Ark hates his engagement so much since breaking it is basically impossible. She scans the room, eager to find where her rescued friend Free is sitting. Suddenly, the instructor stops the service, sternly calling out a student named Miss Ishtar for being late again. A girl bursts through the doors, bowing frantically and apologizing profusely. The strict instructor orders her to stand at the back of the chapel and reflect on her actions. Asha peeks over the bench and realizes it's Free. She's totally shocked, knowing Free isn't the type to slack off. A group of snobby noble kids immediately starts giggling and whispering insults. Asha shoots them a serious side-eye, instantly sensing some wild mean girl bullying happening behind the scenes. The second the service ends, Asha absolutely bolts out of the pews, leaving Ark yelling in her dust. Free spots the princess running toward her and looks completely startled. Instead of waiting, Free turns and completely books it out the door, leaving Asha screaming her name. Asha chases her toward the grand staircase, while Ark panics, knowing the little princess isn't used to running down steps. She picks up way too much speed and realizes too late that she can't hit the brakes. Right as she's about to totally wipe out, a mysterious boy steps in and catches her perfectly. He gently asks if she's okay, and a flustered Asha stammers out a thank you. She looks up and is totally dazzled by his pretty, sparkling green eyes and ginger hair. But then the boy drops to one knee like a literal Prince Charming and smoothly says, "We finally meet, my dear princess." The nearby students gasp in pure shock, while Ashad just blushes, completely flabbergasted by this insanely smooth introduction. Before the guy can even finish his smooth line, Ark absolutely bonks him on the head, yelling at him for calling Ashad his princess. The boy rubs his head, complaining about bodily harm, while Ark calls him a cocky brat. Recovering his manners, the boy introduces himself as Melvian Lascelles, making Ashad's eyes go wide. She instantly remembers her secret deal with the powerful Marquis Lascelles. Dropping the shock, she politely greets him, and Melvian warmly asks her to use his first name. Internally, Asha admits she hasn't contacted the Marquis lately, but hopes this kid doesn't think they're actually getting engaged. She's just relieved he doesn't seem to hate her, then casually asks how long he's been at the academy. Melvian says he started early this year, so Asha asks if he knows her friend Free. Suddenly, Melvian leans in uncomfortably close. He hesitates, his face turning completely red as he stares at her. Then he abruptly apologizes, blurting out that she's way cuter than his grandfather described. Both Asha and Ark look completely weirded out, getting full-body goosebumps from the random flirting. Asha hilariously wonders if the Marquis literally trained this kid to act like a cheesy rom-com lead. Getting back on topic, Melvian reveals that Free is constantly punished by the student council. Asha is stunned, and Melvian explains they just use her to vent their frustrations since they hate commoners. Hearing they make Free do all their laundry, Asha realizes her friend lied in her letters just to endure it alone. Furious, Asha demands directions to the dormitory, and Melvian offers to lead the way. Ark completely panics, realizing they are straight up cutting classes on day one. By lunchtime, the trio arrives at the bustling dorm courtyard. Ark and Melvian are forced to carry mountains of clothes, while Asha fumes about the human trash who did this to Free. The surrounding students start whispering, shocked to see the first princess handling a commoner's punishment. Ark nervously asks what Asha plans to do with all these clothes. Without hesitating, she fiercely screams at them to burn it all to the ground. Ark sweats bullets, reminding her that starting a massive bonfire on campus is a terrible idea. Instead, Asha turns her blazing anger toward the gossiping crowd. She loudly declares that as the first princess, she will never stand by while classmates are treated like literal servants. Intimidated by her aura, the bullies quickly scatter, muttering that they can just buy new uniforms anyway. Ark watches proudly, totally in awe of his tiny princess's overflowing charisma. Meanwhile, Melvian is completely dazed, staring at her like he just saw a goddess. He starts fanbang, praising her natural talents as a ruler, which Asha awkwardly brushes off. In the background, Ark glares daggers at the ginger kid, finding him 10 times more annoying than anyone else. He barks at Melvian to stay 3 feet away from the princess, totally acting like an overprotective older brother. The story shifts to a peaceful tea time, where Asha casually asks Pian if he was ever bullied by other knights. Pian looks up, totally caught off guard by the random question. He immediately goes into dad mode, asking if someone at the academy is bullying her, but she denies it. Pian admits the older knights used to break his practice swords and hide his schedule, which Asha quickly points out is literally bullying. He explains it only stopped once he rose in rank, making Asha realize that sheer power is the only way to survive. She knows she can't just shadow Free 24/7 to protect her. Plus, she might have to escape the capital long before Free even graduates. With a fiery glare, Asha sets a wild new goal. She's going to make Free the student council president and absolutely demolish their corrupt system. Pian sweats nervously, sensing his daughter's menacing aura and asking if something happened. Asha smoothly changes the subject, pouring him another cup of his favorite sweet tea. But internally, she notes how weird it is that Pian loves this specific tea when he usually hates sweets. Smirking, she casually asks if her late mother used to like this tea too. Pian violently chokes on his drink, coughing like a madman. He blushes a deep red while wiping his mouth, completely exposing his lingering crush. He awkwardly apologizes for the mess, trying to regain his legendary Paladin composure. Ashad just hits him with a smug, playful sneer, asking why he was so surprised. She mercilessly teases him, loving how flustered he gets over her mom. Pian stubbornly denies being shocked, but Ashad just giggles, completely seeing through her dad's tough guy act. Ashad cheekily pushes the issue, asking if her mom liked the tea or not. Pian gets super defensive, stammering about how he wouldn't know that. She playfully reminds him that they went on monster extermination missions together, so he must have noticed. Completely defeated and blushing hard, Pian makes a swift excuse and bolts for the door. Asha watches him run away and does a little victory dance. With her dad gone, she's finally free to use her portal magic. She gets fully packed and ready for her secret nighttime mission. Her bag is loaded with rare magic books, fancy stationery, and some insanely tasty pastries. She smugly figures that if she bribes Leo with top-tier gifts, he probably won't try to murder her again. Ashat teleports straight into Leo's tower room, catching him totally off guard in his pajamas. He literally does a silent scream, frantically casting a sound-deadening spell so they don't get caught. Flustered and angry, he demands to know what the heck she's doing back in his room. Ashat casually states that she always keeps her promises, but Leo just glares at her like an angry, hissing cat. Ignoring his attitude, she unpacks the snacks, telling him fresh food tastes best at night. Leo stops her hand, looking at her like she's completely crazy. Asha gets annoyed, frustrated that he's acting so ungrateful after she snuck all the way here. Leo asks the real question, why would she risk visiting a state enemy who literally threatened to kill her? He clenches his fist, hinting at the sheer terror he felt over the past week. Asha realizes he must have been paralyzed with fear, thinking the knights would discover his magic and lock him away for good. Trying to lighten the mood, she offers him the snacks again so they can just sit and talk. Leo goes full tsundere, refusing to accept her charity until his stomach aggressively growls. The silence is deafening as Asha giggles, pointing out that his tummy strongly disagrees with his pride. To prove the food isn't poisoned, she takes a big bite first and Leo finally caves. Watching him eat, Asha realizes the poor guy probably hasn't had a decent meal in years. She asks if it's safe to leave the magic books out, worrying the cleaning servants might find them. Leo casually drops a bombshell, no servants ever clean his room. Ashak connects the dots, his guards constantly slack off, meaning the young prince has to do all his own chores. She stares at him in pity, remembering his dark future where he snaps, fights the knights, and causes a tragedy. Suddenly, Leo cuts through her thoughts, asking who she actually is. He points out that she doesn't look anything like the other brown-haired princesses he's seen. He knows for a fact that she can't be part of the main royal bloodline. Asha fidgets nervously before admitting she's the daughter of the late Princess Beatrice. Leo is shocked, recalling rumors that Beatrice never married anyone. He bluntly asks if she's an illegitimate child, making Asha brace herself for insults. She looks down, completely expecting the prince to treat her like a disgrace. But instead, Leo softly tells her that being born illegitimate isn't her fault at all. He doesn't look down on her one bit, completely shattering her expectations. He remembers his own mother's wise words: children shouldn't suffer for the prejudices and mistakes of adults. Asha's eyes sparkle with awe, telling Leo that his mom sounds like a truly wonderful person. Leo immediately gets embarrassed and defensive again, but Asha just beams and asks him to be friends. He loses his mind, yelling that she clearly didn't listen to a single word he just said. But Asha hits him with an offer he can't refuse. If they become friends, she'll keep smuggling in new books so he doesn't have to risk sneaking out. Looking at Leo, Asha remembers her own brutal past lives, being locked away and treated like dirt. She remembers always hoping for someone to come and rescue her from the darkness. Determined to break the cycle, she firmly believes children shouldn't pay for adult wars and asks him one more time to be her friend. After she leaves, Leo completely collapses onto his couch, totally drained. He clutches his chest, freaking out over how fast his heart is pounding. He stares at the ceiling, wondering why this random girl just showed up to befriend him out of nowhere. He reminds himself that as Princess Beatrice's daughter, she is technically his sworn enemy. But then he glances at the stack of magic books she brought him, his face flushing bright red as he hides his embarrassment. The next day at the academy, the courtyard is buzzing with wild rumors as Melvian follows Asha around like a totally devoted puppy. The academy courtyard is buzzing with gossip as students whisper about Ark swearing allegiance to Princess Asha instead of his fiancée, Stella. Stella quickly defends him, claiming Ark just has a favor to return, but her snobby friends think Asha is weak and acting way too cocky. The mean girls start scheming, wondering how they can isolate the young princess. They figure that since Asha is just a kid, pushing her out will quickly make her realize her place. The ringleader smirks, revealing she has connections organizing the upcoming team exam and plans to conveniently group Ark and Stella together. Meanwhile, Asha is walking with Ark and her new shadow Melvian. She realizes the upcoming term exam is actually a massive hunting festival, and the winner gets to become the student council president. Asha giggles evilly, confirming this is exactly what she needed. Ark nervously asks if she's really going to enter, warning her that her overprotective dad will definitely object. Asha just beams, confidently declaring she'll defeat her papa so she doesn't miss this chance to absolutely wreck the corrupt council members. Suddenly, her smile fades when she notices Free is nowhere to be seen again. Feeling super down, Asha peeks around the courtyard and catches Free hiding behind a pillar. She totally snaps, yelling at the older girl not to run away or she'll get seriously mad. Free stops dead in her tracks, looking incredibly guilty. Asha confronts her, asking why she hid the fact that she was being relentlessly bullied. Free tears up, explaining she just didn't want to burden the princess and planned to quietly endure it until graduation. Asha is deeply touched that Free cares so much, while Ark and Melvian hilariously fume in the background, jealous of their tight bond. Because of the emotional detour, Asha ends up running late for her first class. She bursts through the doors, apologizing profusely for her tardiness. But the strict, mustache-sporting professor instantly glares at her, harshly scolding her for skipping the previous day. Asha awkwardly groans internally, wondering what this guy's deal is since she already explained her situation. Ark recognizes him as Professor Gaysar, a famous magic theory expert who's secretly rumored to steal his students' ideas. Gaysar loudly doubts whether a little kid who skipped the entrance exam can even keep up with his advanced graduate class. To test her, he challenges Asha to draw the highly complex spell for a message stone on the board. Asha doesn't even flinch. She steps right up, mentioning she's actually been experimenting with this exact spell lately. She confidently grabs the chalk, excited to test out her new theories. The entire class watches in absolute awe as she draws the intricate magic circle flawlessly without checking a textbook once. She finishes in record time, slapping the chalk down like an absolute boss. Gaysar is internally sweating but tries to play it cool, arrogantly claiming her recipe isn't perfect. Asha calmly explains that she recently tested this modified version herself. She points out that her unique formula uses way less mana while connecting to even more people. Refusing to take the L, Gaysar insists the standard 50-year-old recipe is the absolute peak of efficiency. Asha hits him with a polite but devastating smile, reminding him that the world of magic has no limits. She brilliantly traps him, offering to send her recipe to the testing institute and thanking him for the opportunity. Completely cornered and sweating bullets, the professor abruptly dismisses her back to her seat. As she sits down, she notices the brown-haired girl next to her staring intently. The girl slides a piece of paper over, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. The note asks if Asha really invented that spell, and Asha replies that it's her own research. The girl writes back that she hopes it gets approved, adding a cute doodle to show she totally hates the professor too. Asha is pleasantly surprised by her friendly vibe. The girl introduces herself as Mila, admitting she originally planned to avoid noble drama completely until she saw Asha's skills. Mila shyly asks if the rumors are true, can Asha really summon a divine beast? She totally fangirls, noting how insanely rare divine power is. Asha is amazed by Mila's bold initiative to break the social rules just to ask her about magic. Cut to later, Pian is absolutely grilling Asha for showing off her divine beast to the other students. But Asha just smiles innocently, hugging her squishy, marshmallow-like blob. A flashback shows Mila and the other girls totally losing their minds over how cute the little creature is, begging to hug it. Asha rubs her cheek against the blob, proudly stating that her powerless baby is just too adorable to hide. Pian continuously nags her, reminding her that a divine beast isn't a toy and summoning it drains her mana. But Asha completely brushes him off, proudly declaring she can easily hold the summon for an hour while hoping her little blob evolves into something epic. Pian goes into full strict dad mode, endlessly nagging Asha about her weak defenses and unstable power until she's practically crying cartoon tears. Trying to change the subject, she begs to see his legendary dragon beast up close, but Pian instantly shuts it down, warning her that it's way too massive and dangerous. Asha isn't giving up that easily. She hits him with the ultimate puppy dog eyes, pleading that he can just use his magic to shrink the dragon down. Unable to resist his adorable daughter, Pian finally caves, making Asha cheer in pure victory. It's a well-known theological fact that divine beasts have their own egos and usually mirror their owner's exact personality. Because of this, Asha fully expects Pian's beast to be sharp, quiet, and completely stoic just like him. She looks down at her trembling little blob, gently asking if it's scared of the big, scary dragon. A massive shadow suddenly falls over her as she tries to reassure her pet that Papa's beast would never attack them. Wham! Out of nowhere, Asha gets absolutely wiped out, flying backward onto the dirt like a bowling pin. But it's not an attack. A giant, derpy white dragon head is pinning her down and aggressively licking her face. The supposedly terrifying beast turns out to be a massive, over-affectionate puppy, smothering a confused Asha while Pian absolutely panics in the background.